like to welcome everyone here for the regularly scheduled planning board meeting for May 6, 2013. Roll call, Jetty.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Torpe.
Here.
Reverend Wilson.
Present.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
The first thing we have on the agenda today would be approval of the regularly scheduled meeting for April 10th. We need to take a roll call because I know that
So moved.
Well, actually, I'm not going to be here. I wasn't at that meeting, so I have to abstain from that. So we need a roll call on that, I assume.
I guess. So move it. Mr. Chairman,
Give me a s-
do you want to read the public notice statement?
Sorry. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, PL 1975, this is the state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2013 to the South Orange Maplewood News Record and the Star Ledger in December 2012, and by filing said notice in the office of the village clerk. Sorry, now to approval of meetings, minutes.
I'll move it again.
Okay. Can we have a second?
Second.
Can we do a roll call?
I wasn't there.
A roll call for the approval of that?
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Abstain?
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Torpe.
Abstain.
Reverend Wilson.
Yes.
And Mr. Allen.
Abstain.
Passes. Next for the agenda this evening, we have the application, case number 226, Seton Hall University, University Center, block 1901, lot 3, 400 South Orange Avenue. We have preliminary and final site plan. For this application, the applicant seeks to construct a new university center. We have the Seton Hall University people here today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Kevin Coakley, law firm of Connell Foley, on behalf of Seton Hall University.
Yes.
Good evening, very glad to be here.
We don't need to have them
Sworn again.
be sworn in again, do we?
Not Mr. Coakley, but his witnesses.
Okay.
As you indicated, Mr. Chairman, we're here tonight to discuss the preliminary and final site plan approval for the new university center, which is a building that will replace the existing university center and also a building known as Duffy Hall. The building will be a multi-purpose facility that will be described to you later on in the testimony by Mr. Garbini and other witnesses. In order to construct the building, which is where the university presently has dining for the students, there will be the need to construct some temporary buildings that will provide the dining function while this building is being constructed. So that's a general overview of what is planned to be built. Now, in addition to preliminary and final site plan approval, there are two minor variances necessary for this application. They're both C variances. One variance would be a height variance because a certain part of the university center, a very small part, will exceed the allowable height of 75 feet. It will exceed it by about 5 feet, and that's a C variance. And then secondly, the zone that the building is in part, has a provision with respect to distances between buildings. And so there is a variance needed because distance between the new building and one existing building will be less than required by the ordinance. So those are the two variances, and there will be testimony about them both by the engineer and by the university's planner. Just as a way of a general outline of the witnesses, you'll hear from Mr. Garbini, who's testified before the board on many prior occasions. You'll hear from Mr. DiGiacinto, who is from Langen Engineering, is the civil engineer for the project. You'll hear from Ms. Pamela Rue, who is the University's architect, and then you'll hear from Gregory Woodruff, also from Langen, who is the planner on this matter, who will give testimony regarding the variances. Before we start with Mr. Garbini, I'd like to go over one matter that was raised initially by Mrs. Gruhl in her memo of January 28, 2013. And I should note that this matter was originally scheduled to be heard in February. It was carried to March at the request of the applicant, and it was then subsequently carried from March to April to tonight. And at all of those meetings, it was noted on the record that it was being carried to another date, so that the notice originally given in February would still apply. But the matter that Mrs. Gruhl raised had to do with a line that is on the zoning map of the village called the Special District A line, and this line separates two parts of the Seton Hall campus those parts of the campus are subject to somewhat different zoning requirements. So what's important for this evening is for you to understand where that line is, because part of the campus is subject to a different requirement than the rest of the campus. And generally the part that's subject to more limitations is the part that runs along certain of the existing dormitories and in an easterly direction towards Center Street. So that area is considered the special district. And in that area, there's a height limitation of 32 feet, whereas on the other side of the line, there's a height limitation of 75 feet. So for purposes of this application, it was important to have an accurate representation of where that line is. And in connection with that, the university consultants met with representatives of the village, including the zoning officer and Mrs. Gruhl and council, and went over historical events that led to a common understanding of where that line is. Now, the line is an unsurveyed line on the map. It's a line that there's no meets and bounds description on the map. And it's drawn on this map at a scale of, I believe it's 1 inch to 600 feet. So, you can imagine it's a very somewhat imprecise on the line. But so we went back historically to see where that line could be placed, and we looked at several different things. One, when the line was first introduced, which goes back to perhaps 1981. There was a zoning ordinance that showed this line on a map and showed certain buildings where they were located and where the line was located. So that map was then used as a touchstone for this process. Then secondly, there were various approvals given over the years by the board, and those approvals had different heights involved in it. So, by looking at the approvals and whether there are variances required, it was possible to tell where the line was. And for example, there's a series of dormitories that you'll hear testimony about, but those dormitories are, below 32 feet. So, it was thought that the line would go to the west of those dormitories. There's another dormitory that was approved where the height is approximately 75 feet. I'll give you the exact number in a minute. So that the line was between those 2 points. That was sort of the demarcation. There was also an approval for an elevator in the 1980s or 1990s that was without variance, and there was evidence in that approval that the line went on one side of this elevator. So the line was placed by the parties working together and coming up with a common understanding of where it was by all of these historical factors of prior approvals and that 1981 zoning map. And so in furtherance of that, and in keeping with Mrs. Gruhl's memo of January 28th, what we'd like to show you through evidence before we go to Mr. Garbini is the heights of the buildings in the area along the line. And so I'd like to call Mr. Di Giacinto for that purpose, first of all.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Di Giacinto has two boards, and to make it easier, we have 8.5 by 11.
You can
You
speak
have to
on the
speak at
microphone, please.
You have to be at the microphone.
One of them, there's one here. There's one here.
Okay.
You want to walk? You
Let me-
can pick that
let
one
me
up.
just say this, and then I'll get out of Mr. Di Giacinto's way. We have two sets of actually they're 11.5 by 17s, which show these two boards that he's going to be talking to first, so you'll be able to see them better.
And Jetty will enter those as exhibits?
Yes.
Mr. Coakley, are both boards on that one exhibit?
No, they're two separate boards.
Two separate boards.
And they're two separate 11.5 by 17.
So what would you like Mark to say, one?
First one was
Drawing CS 100A.
CS?
CS 100A.
Is there a date on it?
March 4th, 2013.
And this drawing is identified as existing building height summary plan.
That's A2?
That was A1, that's
Oh.
further description of A1.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, Eric, I'd like to get my exhibits back so before they get...
Yeah, they took them and started. Yeah, give them back home.
I'm certainly, not...
They came and took them.
Did you get it?
Yes, we got it.
Mr. Keller, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to keep one for my file, if you don't mind.
Are there others available for the public?
Well, I think there's been 3 or 4 distributed there. Right, and Exhibit A2, would you describe that for the record?
Yeah, that's drawing CS 100B. Also has a date of March 4th, 2013,
There's a witness?
and it's titled
Yes, let's see.
Proposed Building Height Summary Plan.
Call proposed.
Proposed Building Height Summary Plan.
Mr. Coakley, can we swear your witness? Mr. DiGiacinto, would you raise your right hand? Would you please tell us that you swear or affirm the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
John Di Giacinto, business or personal address?
There isn't.
Langen Engineering, River Drive Center 1, Elmwood Park, New Jersey.
All right, Mr. DiGiacinto, would you give the board the benefit of your educational background?
Graduate of Lehigh University, civil engineering degree. I've been practicing for 19 years, licensed for 14.
All right. And have you testified before boards in New Jersey previously?
Yes, I have.
All right, you've testified before this board before?
Yes, I have.
All right, and have you been qualified as an expert?
Yes.
And so I'd like to offer him as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now, in connection with the matter of the Special District A line, do you have 2 drawings that you've prepared?
Yes, we do.
All right, and would you look at drawing A1 and just generally tell the board what that represents?
This is the northeastern portion of the overall campus. On top of the sheet here, you can see South Orange Avenue, the main entrance, and the traffic signals off here on the right.
Make sure you take the microphone with you.
We got the main intersection entrance to the campus over here on the right. South Center is down here on the bottom of the sheet. Okay. As Kevin mentioned, the Special District A line appears on the zoning map as a non-surveyed line. Through several rounds of coordination with various members, including the village zoning officer, Susan Gruhl's office, and I believe Mr. Dwyer. This line location has been refined. As Kevin mentioned, the maximum height within this Special District A zone, which is within the overall university district zone, the maximum allowable height is 3 stories and 32 feet. The minimum yards are setbacks 75 feet, except off of South Center, it requires 100-foot setback. And then the other requirement in this district is a separation between buildings. So in resolving the location of this line, we've basically placed it along the northern side of these residential buildings. We start off on the right here with Newman Hall, which is a 29-foot high building, 3 stories. Sarah Hall, which is identical to Newman, 3 stories and 29 feet. Portion of Xavier Hall, which is on what I'll call the south side of this Special District A line, is 3 stories, 27.5 feet. And then off on the right, you can see the line jogs as it crosses over Duffy Hall. The portion of Duffy Hall south of the line is a 2-story, 24-foot, 3-inch height. And then on the north side, Duffy Hall rises up, and this is, Mr. Copley mentioned before, there was an expansion of this building that included an elevator. So on the north side of the line, Duffy Hall rises to 54 feet 2 inches and has a penthouse height of 61 feet 8 inches. As you head back to the right, Xavier Hall, again, this is a 1-dorm building, but it was broken into 2 pieces. This northern portion rises up 7 stories, 64 feet 7 inches to the roof, and there's actually a siren located on the roof of this building that's at 77 feet 6 inches. As you head to the right, Fahey Hall is at a height of 57 feet 4 inches, Cabrini Hall at 45 feet 9 inches. So I think it's pretty clear that the intent of this line and the ordinance requirements, this location clearly separates prior approvals for buildings below the allowable heights within the Special District A, and then the buildings that were approved outside of it with the larger heights.
Okay, and did you submit this line, this drawing to Mr. Renda?
Yes.
And did he have any comment about it?
My understanding is that he was in agreement with the location shown on this plan.
All right. And, all right, so now let's look at A2 and just tell the board what that drawing is intended to show.
A2 is essentially, it's the same portion of the site. The only difference on this drawing is we're showing the proposed University Center building. You can see underneath is the existing University Center and Duffy Hall. The portion of the University Center building that's actually going to be within the Special District A area is a 32-foot height building, which is right at the allowable height.
I'm sorry, can you just speak up a little bit?
Sorry. The portion of the building that's going to be within the Special District A zone is a 32-foot height, which is the allowable height. Approximately 14 to 15 feet north or outside of the Special District A line, the University Center starts to step up to a higher elevation. In that area, the auditorium is just over 50 feet. And then what will be testified in a little more detail later is the highest portions of the building, which includes the atrium roof and the University Center Tower. Atrium roof has a 76-foot 4-inch with an 80-foot 8-inch masonry facade, and then the center tower is 65 feet and 85 feet with the cross on top.
All right, well, those heights don't have anything to do with the special
No.
district A line, correct? So the...
Just what we're doing is really showing that in the design of this building, this portion was kept within the allowable height because it's in the special district A, and then beyond that, the building starts to rise.
And in fact, the building is at 32 feet, a distance of about 14 to 15 feet north of the special district A line.
Yes.
Is that correct? All right, so there's a little bit of leeway there. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so, I wanted to start with that presentation, just so you have that idea, since Mrs. Gruhl had raised that in her initial memo. If there's any questions of this witness on this subject, if not, we'll go on to Mr. Garbini.
Any questions? Proceed.
All right.
Since Sal is not here, I'll rely on Ms. Gruhl. Are you satisfied with the explanation that this all falls into the correct zone?
I think that that's within the zoning officer's jurisdiction. And Mr. Dwyer, you would agree with that, right?
Right.
And both, I think, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think we're both, well, he's satisfied that it's been addressed. Pat, am I being
That's
accurate?
based on the meetings that were had.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. DiGiacinto. I'd like to call Mr. Garbini. All right, Mr. Garbini, would you be sworn in for the record, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Dennis Garbini, 10 Woodland Avenue, Denville, New Jersey.
And what is your office at Seton Hall University?
I am the Vice President for Administration.
All right, and what are the duties of that office?
They include facilities, HR, and technology.
All right, and have you been part of the planning team who put together this application?
Yes, I have.
All right. And could you tell the board generally why the Seton Hall University is intending to build a new university center?
Well, first of all, I'll say that on April 10th, we were before the board, and at that time we showed a updated university master plan, and before you at that time was an application for Aquinas Hall and Stafford Hall addition and reconstruction. Tonight we're here to discuss the University Center, which is the building shown. I think you have this all in your handouts? Okay.
So let's mark this drawing that you referred to as A3.
We don't have that one up
No.
here, by the
Excuse
way.
me?
We don't have that most recent one up here.
Yeah,
Just,
we can give that out. Do you have that extra copy of that?
And that's being entered as exhibits
A3?
A3?
Can you tell us what A3 is, please?
A3?
I would identify A3 as a rendering of the university campus showing the proposed university center in yellow.
Do you have another one?
can have mine, I'll look around with it.
It's all right.
You need another one?
We'll share. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so directing your attention to A3, Mr. Garbini, do you want to start with that?
The university is here before you today to discuss our interest to construct a new university center. The original university center, which was constructed in early 60s, stands as a monument to 1960 architecture. Mostly aluminum and glass, and constructed when energy was cheap. It has not stood the test of time well. It is incongruent with the rest of the building, architecture of the buildings on our campus, and it is not desirous for us to continue with its look. And for a long time, the university has been studying ways to address this. A number of years ago, we tried even to take the classic 60s turquoise panels that were below some of the windows and painted them a brown, a tan, to try and take away some of that look, but it was not terribly effective for the long run. The building, now 50 years old, is very difficult not only to heat and cool, and expensive to heat and cool, but it's also being very difficult to maintain. We are planning a new building that will be architecturally consistent, particularly with the President's Hall and the chapel. A university center is the center of a campus. It's the living room of the campus. It's the dining room of the campus. It's where students, faculty, and employees gather to meet and socialize. We have, later you'll hear from our architect that we engaged, who understands the need, and will speak to some degree about how this new building will meet that need. The new building will include admissions, a welcome center, student services offices, student lounges, meeting rooms, organizational space, campus ministry and a small chapel, food service operations, a bookstore, a small auditorium, and event rooms. When planning the university center, we are mindful of its appearance not only from within campus, but off campus. We all know that first impressions and curbside appeal have a huge impact. That's not only for our prospective students as they drive on campus, but for those driving down South Orange Avenue as they enter the village and they see the university as one of the predominant, maybe the predominant finger on the left as you enter the campus, the village. But it's also our students and their prospective and their parents who are driving on campus, and the village it's a gateway to the village as well. So the look of the university center is key for us. Later, one of the things that as an issue of concern that you'll see is the service road that we've suggested. Currently, as you drive into the entrance of campus, particularly service vehicles will come in through the main gate, and they'll wrap around the first building, which is number 2. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Currently, when service vehicles come on the campus, they'll drive down the entrance and drive down to where's Duffy Hall, turn right, and then make deliveries into the university center. They'll be competing then with both cars and pedestrians. We do have one service road that already in existence that enters the main gate, turns right, and wraps around Cabrini Hall, which is labeled number 2 on your map, along South Orange Avenue. It's our plan to extend that service road, as is shown on your map, down further to come around to the university center. We, as I said before, this is the forward-facing portion of to South Orange Avenue and the community, and it's important for us that it looks attractive. So as we go forward, you will hear how we plan to address that roadway so that it is barely seen from South Orange Avenue. It's important that you keep in mind that between 7 and 15 vehicles will, on average, will make deliveries on any given day. So we're not talking about a lot of traffic here. Currently, those vehicles, as they drive down what is known as Seton Drive, along the backs of the homes on South Center Street, they go over numerous speed bumps. We believe that if we reroute those vehicles in the way that we're suggesting, that will create a more desirable, and I understand more desirable is subjective, but a more desirable outcome. I think the only other thing I want to mention is, as has been suggested, the university will need to create a temporary dining facility during the construction. That dining facility will go on the flat area of the lawn, which is currently in the front of the university center. It's a place that you've probably seen over time where we have chairs out for whether or not it's a commencement event, and in fact that'll be happening in the next 2 weeks. That area is where we plan to put a structure, and an attractive structure, even though it is temporary. That will be, I think, in the plans that you've received, we're talking about a vinyl-clad steel structure that will be there for approximately 1.5 years, and then come down, at which time we'll then restore the area in the grassy section and landscape it.
I have no further questions for Mr. Garbini. If the board does, he's available.
I'm sorry, but I had missed the special meeting that you had called to, I guess, approve the previous plan. But I had a question at the first hearing, and I don't believe the answer was given to me unless it was given at the last meeting. And what is the student population proposed versus now with the overlap day and night?
Well, I was led to believe that there was questions, that question was really relating to the parking garage. We will have that information, and there is, and one of the challenges as I was looking at that information is there is some growth. The issue is, though, as the nature of the university and the student population is changing, traditional headcount is difficult to measure. And in the olden days, you would look at enrollment and presume that was the number of people that you had on campus. Nowadays, with technology, at any given day, even a traditional undergraduate may be taking 1, if not 2, sessions online. And on a graduate level, we're going to need to drill down further so we can identify our graduate programs that are not only wholly off campus, but the ones that in fact will meet only once a month on campus. So I don't have those numbers right now, but it is in fact will show some level of growth.
Yeah, it's not just for the garage. You're rerouting traffic throughout your whole site. And it's just
Well, the only traffic we're talking about rerouting here is the service vehicles.
On this application, the only rerouting is for the service road, the 7 to 15.
well, for this application, but I'm
Yeah.
looking at overall what you're doing on the entire site, and you can't separate one from the other.
Mike,
I'm looking at what you're doing on the whole site, even though you're doing it piecemeal, and you can't separate one from the other. You've got to look at the entire picture.
Well, I think as Mr. Garbini has testified last time, Seton Hall experienced a diminution in enrollment for several years, and now it's starting to move back to what's a consistent level of enrollment. Mr. Garbini?
For example, 2 years ago, we brought in freshman class of 970 freshmen. This past year, in excess of 1,400. Neither one of them were our goal. The current year's goal is 1,250, and it's our plan and hope that we come in and level out at that number. What we need to do, to answer your question, is then identify how many people are on campus, because in fact, how many people are enrolled at the institution, whether they're at a distance or in fact driving on campus or living on campus, is I think at the heart of your question.
Well, it's not just that, there's an overlap. You have day and you have evening, and there is an overlap of
Right.
the two. And I'm just trying, and I have to believe that somebody has done some projections based on what your enrollment's going to be before you embarked on this major expansion. So I would assume those numbers are available somewhere.
Well, again, I was prepared to bring those numbers for the parking garage conversation, because the question, just as you began it today, centered around the movement of traffic. And I think we also, at that time, there was a discussion about a windshield count and the crossover as cars were arriving for the evening as opposed as cars were still on campus from the day. So there was a discussion not only about undergraduate students and evening students, but also employees who may still be present at a 4 o'clock time frame. So all that, in my mind, focused on really a head count and a car head count more than a human head count.
Well, it's both, I mean, or you wouldn't be expanding the building to the square footage that you're expanding.
But the reason why we're expanding, the plan for expanding this building, quite frankly, it began in 2000, okay? And at that point in time, since that time, we've had our enrollment has been erratic. As our enrollment has been erratic, in particular, a year and a half ago when we brought in the class of 970, that accelerated the belief that we needed to build a university center and modernize the university center so that we could recover and thrive. And the goal at that time was to bring in a class of 1,250. We also brought in a new admissions director, and we went, and the new admissions director helped us see that it wasn't just the university center. There were other things that we needed to do to bring in a stable and quality class.
All right, and Mr. Miller, there will be testimony about the net increase in square footage, because there are two buildings coming down being replaced by this
No,
building.
I understand.
Okay.
Is there also going to be further testimony on the screening that's going to take place on your new service drive?
Yes.
And also where you're putting the temporary buildings?
Yes, the engineer will testify as to those items.
Yes.
Curious, you're taking down two buildings and putting up a larger one. We'll hear the net square footage difference. Is there going to be testimony to the effect of what that means for the environment and waste and all of those sorts of things with this added facility?
Well, this property is zoned for a university. This use is within the zoning of the university. So we're not here for a use variance, as you know. We're just here for bulk variances. So, those types of questions are not exactly within the jurisdiction of the board. But I think you'll hear that this building will be operated in a way that will be better than it's operated now.
I guess we'd have to ask our attorney if it's within the jurisdiction. I was just curious if you were going to have information to that effect.
Yeah, there'll be information with respect to how the building is serviced with the vehicles and the loading dock and sewage and water and that sort of thing, yes.
And after they operate, you can see if you still have questions.
Yeah, I'm just asking if they were going to testify to this subject, that's all.
Any more questions for Mr. Gravine?
No. Yes.
Mr. Gardini, you said that there were 7 to 15 delivery trucks on a typical day. What's the breakdown between tractor trailers and other type of trucks?
The majority of the vehicles are box trucks or smaller. There may be perhaps 3 to 4 larger tractor trailers.
On a day, on a given day?
Again, on average, maybe 3, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question. Mr. Garbini, you mentioned that there's an existing service road to the right as you enter the main gate,
Yes.
but then you mentioned something about traffic going over the speed bumps on the main driveway. Were you referring to delivery trucks there?
Well, there's a service road as you come into the main gate, and you turn right and you go around Cabrini where the new service road will go. There is also currently a service road that goes in and to Building 5. Between 2 and 5, there are some dumpsters and and a loading dock. What I was referring to as I was talking about vehicles entering the main gate and going down Seton Drive along the backs of the homes on South Center Street, those are the 7 to 15 that I was referring to. That will now be going around the building to the back of the University Center.
Now, as far as vehicles, is the turnaround area, is that a betterment, Mr. Grumby?
I believe so.
All right, could you just explain that, please?
Well, do you want me to do that?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, the reason why we added this turnaround area is to avoid any trucks from doing any K-turns and any noise that might make. So it should allow, particularly any of the smaller vehicles, to just circle around and then back into under the loading dock. So admittedly, it looks large, but it was put there, in fact, to hold down noise and make it easier for the vehicles to get in there without any disruption of the area, whether it's across the street, South Orange Avenue, or within the university itself.
And are you going to prohibit idling of vehicles?
Yes. We do that now.
All right, I have no further questions.
I have a quick question. Forgive my possible ignorance as far as the technical requirements of, are there any differences technically between a road that is going to be used for general traffic versus a service road as far as the width of the road or emergency vehicle access or anything like that? That could be a question for anybody. Anybody feel free to jump in.
That may be for our engineer, I think,
Right.
would probably be the better person.
Really, what I'm sort of leading to is that I just want to sort of assume, and I can't tell from here as far as discussions with the fire department and other emergency services to make sure that this road is, completely accessible and easily accessible. I mean, this obviously provides greater access for emergency vehicles as well.
Well, you make a very good point, actually, for me. I forgot to mention that, obviously this service road, will provide access to the backs of all of these buildings, which currently are difficult to get to by emergency vehicles. This has been discussed with the emergency services, and I believe there'll be a discussion about that later in the testimony. But the roadway is more than adequate to provide fire truck access, let alone any other emergency vehicle.
And actually, I mean, as far as I can tell and from my own personal experience, that this road would actually provide greater access than what's available now.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any, this is a service road and it's only, one lane and only to be used by our trucks, but that's going to be accessible for any code requirements or road widths or anything else.
The width is, it's 2 12-foot lanes, so 12-foot is standard. In fact, it really doesn't get wider than 12 foot, so it's two lanes, 12 feet each, 24-foot roadway.
Yes.
I guess I'm still confused, I apologize. You identified the road that parallels South Orange Avenue as an existing service road, right? But it's unused entirely?
No, the existing service road comes along in front of Building 2 and goes in between 2 and 5.
Oh, so what's on the A3 is the proposed.
Correct.
I'm sorry, what's
What's on
on?
A3 is proposed, not the existing.
Yes,
Yes.
A3 is proposed.
Right.
Thank you.
GS 100B shows the existing road.
Yes, it should. Yep.
Yes, continue.
Well, I think unless there's any other questions from the board or the public,
Yeah. Take questions from the public now, and public questions later. Okay. Yes.
How you doing? I'm John Gay, I live at 10 Elm Court, right across the street from Seton Hall.
Just make sure, yeah.
Sure. I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask this, but the new service road, how close is it going to be to South Orange Avenue at that corner right here?
I'm sorry, your name again?
John Gay.
John, the area that you just pointed, that's an existing road right now. As I said, the existing service road wraps around Building 2 and goes up to in between 2 and 5. So what
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
what we're proposing here today will not, well, I guess there may be, how many feet closer? It just dawned on me.
Is there a widening of that road?
Yes, there is.
I mean, I'm looking at a different plan than that, I think, the one that was on file. But it shows it going right up to the current fence.
Well, actually,
It's right there.
to
I don't know
the point,
if it's been changed from what is on file, but
to the point of your question, it is actually part of one of our witnesses' testimony.
okay. Well, I'll question whoever is relevant on that, but that's one of the things that I'm a little concerning. And
Is there going to be a larger presentation about the service road coming up?
Yes.
If that's the case, then you may want to just wait until they present that road.
okay, I just want to make sure I'm not losing my opportunity to question anybody about this stuff.
He'll still be here.
Okay, thank you.
Could we perhaps maybe get a little better understanding of exactly all the things that are to be discussed? It seems like people are asking questions that are going to be answered already, myself possibly included.
well, yeah, the engineer will be testifying about the points raised by Mrs. Gruhl, the points raised by Omlin Engineering, generally about the service road, and all aspects of that.
Okay.
And what about the temporary structure? Is going to be someone speaking about that as well?
Yes, I'll speak about that, locate that for you. Perhaps Mr. Garbini, how long will the temporary structures be there, Mr. Garbini?
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
So is somebody going to speak about the loading dock as well?
Yes.
You have the next witness, or?
Okay. All right, we're going to recall Mr. DiGiacinto.
Sure, this represents the as-is.
Mr. Coakley, can we introduce the entire plan set as A4?
Certainly, yep.
And then you can refer to whatever page you're on at that time.
All right. Let me ask him a question. Is this, the board you just put up, Mr. DiGiacinto, what is that?
That's actually a additional drawing, not in the sets, that shows an outline of the proposed building as well as the two existing buildings.
Okay, so let's mark that as A4, just as he described it.
And do you have copies of those as well, or not?
No, they're not.
No, I think those would be fairly visual.
Do you want the
there a date on it?
Yeah, it's dated March 4th, 2013.
That's not in the plan set?
It is not, no.
Yes. Make sure you speak into the microphone. Sir.
Okay. Mr. DiGiacinto, why don't you start by just giving the board an overview of the plan?
Okay, like I said, this plan is not in your set, but we took the...
Sorry, can I speak a little?
We tried to take the existing conditions so that you could see the difference between the existing and proposed buildings. On the left-hand side over here, you can see an outline of, hopefully you can see the outline of the existing University Center building. On the right-hand side is the outline of Duffy Hall, and then the bold black line, which also is on most of the plans you have, is the new University Center building.
With that being very hard to see the outline of the existing building on that from here, is that represented by what's on this drawing as well?
This dark, which one are you referring to?
This is GS 100B, which seems to show the new building as well as some lines beneath it.
Yeah,
as
you can,
existing.
those are the existing buildings underneath. Obviously, where the new building is screened, it's hard to see all of the
Yeah,
line work
From
of the
here we
existing.
can't, at least I can't see
I
that.
apologize, yellow wasn't the right color.
All right, so instead of looking at drawings, why don't you just explain to the board the general nature of what this application is about?
Okay, as you're, just so you, the drawing I have in front of me is in your drawing set. It's drawing CS 101, which is the University Center site plan.
All right, so, and we'll just call the entire set as A5.
Right.
Okay, as you're aware, the university wants to replace the existing University Center and Duffy Hall with this new University Center building. For some reference information, the coverage numbers, the existing University Center building is about 53,500 square feet footprint. The existing Duffy Hall is just over 11,000 square foot footprint. That's just shy of 65,000 total building footprint. This new proposed University Center is just shy of 87,000 square feet. It's about a 22,000 square foot increase. And then with respect to floor area, the existing University Center is approximately 83,000 square feet. Duffy Hall is approximately 32,000 square feet, total of 115,000 plus or minus. And the new University Center will be approximately 204,000 square feet.
200 what?
204,000 square feet. All of these coverage, the building coverage as well as the floor area ratio, with the previously approved Aquinas and Stafford Hall and this new University Center proposed project, are still all in compliance with the allowable coverages as well as FAR, floor area ratio, for the zoning code. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on the site plan so you understand some of the things that are going on around the site plan. Over here on the right is approximately where Duffy Hall sits. There's currently an existing small parking lot over in that area, as well as some parking along the side. We're going to be reconfiguring this parking lot to address some of the spots that are being lost that were on the side of the building, which would be the north side of Duffy Hall. It still maintains the same access point off of Seton Drive. Along the main frontage of the building, we're really not making any changes to the service roadways, I'll call them, driveways. We do have a small rain garden along the front, adjacent to the main entrance of the building, which is off the center green of the campus. And then as you wrap around, there's an outdoor courtyard, and then there's this loading dock area here, and the service road. What I also have up here is in the drawing set, which is CS 120, the overall site plan. This can give you the context of a large portion of the campus where we have the new University Center building. We have the service road that's going to be wrapping around. This, as mentioned by Mr. Garbini, this portion of the service road, or a service road exists along Fahey Hall and Cabrini, along Cabrini and stops at Fahey to access some loading area there at Fahey. We're going to be expanding this road to allow for truck access, running the road down, and then accessing the loading area. There's a large turnaround area over here that facilitates turnaround for larger trucks like a tractor trailer. And then this loading dock area is actually depressed so that when the trucks back into the loading area, they're actually dropping down, kind of not completely below the turnaround area, but it starts to bring them down instead of up where they're more visible. It's also important to note that the loading dock is internal to the building, so the trucks will be pulling into the building. Most of the trucks, like your food trucks, Gatorade, Pepsi, delivery trucks, the predominant number will fully pull into the loading dock area. Tractor trailers, however, the main trailer will be in, however the cab of the truck will be still sort of sticking out.
All right, now one of the questions that was brought up was emergency access. You want to address that? Or
Yeah. While this road is also providing access to the service area for the University Center, it does have the added benefit of providing emergency access. Based on the design of this roadway to facilitate WB 62, which is a large 48-foot tractor trailer truck, there's no reason to have any concerns about fire trucks being able to make this turn, access this roadway, turn around at the end. So now they have access to both sides of 4 buildings that previously they only had access to through internal walkways. They didn't even have a roadway really. They had to come off the roads, off of pavement onto more sidewalk areas to be able to get to those buildings. Now they'll have free access along this back service road.
Just a question, it may help other people understand who may have this plan. You have a grayed area here, you're talking about the footprint of the building. I see what's in yellow. What's in gray, I'm assuming is still part of the footprint of that building, and that's where the trucks will be backing into, because it's hard to, again, see some of the lines that you have there.
Sorry, I didn't have that drawing in front of me.
It's fine, but initially, in looking at this drawing, it looks as though just the yellow is the footprint, but I'm looking at that lighter gray area. That's also part of the footprint of this building?
Yeah, if you're looking at the plan, above where it says number 8,
Right.
so I have A3. Sorry. Right above where it says A8, that is actually a raised terrace with the loading dock below it.
That gray area?
The gray area, yes. The other gray area, a little off, up to the left, that's actually just an outdoor patio at grade. And then in the front is really this, you can see at the main entrance, there's a staircase creating a landing at the front entrance, which is here. And then there's a little smaller outdoor terrace here.
Okay.
Do you want to go through the size of the truck again? You say it's a 48-foot semi with a, is that including the cab size?
No, the trailer itself is only a 48. Basically, it's
All right, so it's 48 plus the
plus
plus
the cab.
The cab.
all right, so I think we'll go through now the reports of the planner and then the engineer, and then we'll come back to some specific questions about the service road. That's okay,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. All right, so directing your attention to the planner's report. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The first point raised on page 3.
Microphone, please.
Yeah, I hope.
They're very sensitive, the microphones.
Yep. Okay.
Don't hurt that.
that's a little better. Page 3, minimum distance between buildings. And a variance is sought with respect to that. Could you explain that issue to the board?
Yes. Within the Special District A zone that we mentioned earlier, there's a requirement of a 50-foot separation between buildings. Special District A approximately passes through this area. You have it on the other drawings. Under the current conditions, Xavier Hall and the existing Duffy Hall have a separation of approximately 36.7 feet. In this with the proposed University Center building, we're getting a little bit closer to Xavier Hall. The separation will now be 27.4 feet.
And then the height variance that's sought, could you explain where the height variance is needed?
Excuse me. The height variance is sought for mainly the portion of the building near the main entrance. The allowable height in the University District is 30 feet plus 1.5 feet for every foot of additional setback up to a maximum of 75. The building itself is about 150 feet off the property line, so the maximum height allowable outside of the Special District A within the university zone would be 75 feet for this building. The atrium roof in this area has a 76 foot 4-inch height, and then the masonry facade on the front and back end is 80 feet 8 inches. So we're seeking height variance from 75 to the 80 feet 8 inches.
All right. Now, on page 5, there are certain comments concerning the service road. Do you see those in paragraphs C and D?
Yes.
You want to address those comments as well? The question was raised, is there any reason that the proposed structure could not provide service access in the same way using the existing service area and roads?
I'd say that's more of an architectural response. However, with the design of the building and the desire to reduce internal impacts on traffic and pedestrians, the idea was that this service road in this area would facilitate keeping truck traffic from running down South Center Street as well as through the campus to get to the loading dock that's currently on the south side of the University Center.
So you would sort of adopt the reasons that Mr. Garbini articulated,
Yes.
Is that correct? And then the next point raised is in paragraph D about the location of the service road vis-a-vis the property line. Can you address that?
Yeah, in terms of accommodating access around the existing Cabrini Hall, the service road has been widened and that does push a little bit closer to the property line. This facilitates allowing trucks to make both turns at the same time without impacting one another. I know the question came up as to how much closer it's getting. Rough measurement, I don't have the exact measurement, but roughly the road is getting widened about 10 feet right near that property line and will remain 15 feet from the curb line of South Orange Avenue.
And there's a question raised in the planner's report about why the old entrance on South Orange Avenue is not being used. Are you familiar with that question? Paragraph
My
G.
understanding is that entrance was shut down years ago as an agreement with the village and is only used for emergency access. I don't know if anybody knows anymore.
That's your
Dennis may have a little more.
That's your understanding that
Yes.
that is not used by agreement with the village?
Yes.
Question on page 6 of the planner's report, paragraph 14 concerning demolition and site grading process. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Okay,
Sorry, what
that's
number are you on, Mr. Coakley?
Page 6, number 14.
Page 6, paragraph 14.
Thank you.
Basically, the question is, has the soil disturbance and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, how will that work?
Obviously, it was mentioned that the temporary dining facility would go up. That's going to be located in this lawn area. That's going to get set up as well as the service road. At that time, as soon as this temporary dining facility is ready and open to feed people, these two buildings are going to be shut down and demolished, obviously with all the appropriate permits, meeting all the environmental conditions that need to be met. And then the process of regrading the site, which really, there's not a lot of regrading because we've essentially maintained the grades outside of the Duffy Hall area where the new building's going to go. Obviously, foundations have to go into the ground. And then this portion of the University Center meets the existing lawn. So there will be some grading to fill in some of the area that was the former loading dock. But actually, there's actually not going to be a lot going on there because that'll be part of the basement. So there will be some regrading, but we're not talking about mass grading because we're taking advantage and using the existing features and grades to sort of set the building heights.
Now, Ms. Gruhl also raises questions about the lighting. Would you address that? Is there adequate lighting?
There is adequate lighting. Most of our lighting work on our portion is focused on the service road. The architect has handled most of the building type mounted lighting. And we have been actually talking about doing some more work. But there is adequate lighting along this service road that's going to be installed, as well as the relocation of some of the lights that are already in this area where we mentioned there is an existing service
All right,
road.
does the lighting extend over the property line?
The intent is not to extend over the property line. If there is any light that would pass beyond the property line, it may provide some additional lighting along the sidewalk, but that would be the extent of it. The idea is obviously to keep it on the campus with the landscaping, which I'll be showing another figure for, and the type of light fixtures we're using. There's going to be very little to no light passing beyond the property line.
All right, and now before we get to the landscaping, or get to the engineer's report, do you have a landscaping rendering here to show the
Yes,
board?
we do.
All right.
Is that A6, Jen? A6?
The A6.
A6. A6 and 7. Keep it with A6. Oh, we got two different pages? Two different pages.
Which one's A6, Mr. Coakley?
A6 is a landscaping plan. What do you call it?
Yeah, A6 will be the drawing prepared by Langen dated 6 May 2007 for some reason. I apologize. Called Street Tree and Landscape Buffer Diagram.
Is that the right date?
The date.
No, the date is way off.
The date he mentioned is obviously incorrect, so.
What should the date be?
Should be May 6, 2013.
2013? Went into a time machine for a minute there. All right, so we've distributed to the board 2 drawings, the first of which has been identified as A6. Can you explain that to the board?
Yeah, based on the review letters from both Higher Rule as well as Omlin, we understand the concerns that are being expressed about the service road, its visibility, and its impact on the neighborhood as well as South Orange. So the university asked us to spend some time looking at enhancing the landscaping around the service road. On the plans that were submitted to you, there was a buffer of plantings surrounding the service court, the turnaround area that accesses the loading dock. What we've done is, obviously you can see on this plan, enhanced that and carried that along the service road. So up on the top of the sheet where Cabrini Hall down to Fahey is, the intent is to put in more shade trees. And then as you come from Fahey down to the service area, there's going to be a mix of shade trees, evergreen trees, large evergreen shrubs. The idea being that this will assist in screening the road year-round, not just during parts of the year where, by using the evergreens. We've also looked, based on some comments that were discussed at the last meeting, at some options for rain gardens to kind of promote some green features, to reuse some of the stormwater. There's some considerations of 3 locations which are shown on the plan, one outside Fahey, one adjacent to the loading dock area and the Arts and Science Hall, as well as between the service road and the new University Center. On the second page where you have some pictures.
This would be A7 you're referring to?
Yeah, this is A7. Dated May 6, 2013.
All right, what do we want to call this?
It's titled "The View of Galleon Lawn Looking Southeast." For reference, this lawn area up against South Orange Avenue, between South Orange Ave and the existing University Center, is the Galleon Lawn. On the top of the page, you can see an existing shot looking across South Orange Avenue towards the University Center. You can see sort of behind that light pole and the evergreen is the University Center building. And as you head down, you can start seeing the Arts and Science Hall, College of Nursing, and then Fahey Hall off in the distance. This lower sketch is the same view, obviously photo enhanced with proposed plantings to sort of ideally similar to what's shown on the Langen plan, where you can see that foliage is going to significantly screen views to this service road as well as the new University Center. Idea being, while there is limited, 7 to 15 trucks a day, the idea is you're not going to see them. They're not going to be in everybody's face, and ideally this will help buffer some of the noise as these trucks travel into the loading dock.
All right, and now, will there be any adverse stormwater impacts by virtue of the construction of this roadway?
No, and actually the project itself is addressing all of the municipal as well as NJDEP requirements. I believe at the last meeting I ran through some of the issues. 2 things are occurring. One, we're addressing reductions in peak stormwater runoff. State as well as municipal requirements under a major development, which this is, require reductions in the various 210 and 100-year storms at various percentages. So we've got a large detention system below this service road that's going to be collecting both the building as well as the new service road. I should say, most of the building to this service area. In addition, for the service road, we're addressing water quality by installing a treatment device that will capture various contaminants, silt, petroleum products, things like that that may drip off of trucks. There is also a second stormwater detention system that's going in the parking lot over by where Duffy Hall exists, and that's going to capture a portion of the building and do stormwater reductions in that area. So there are no negative effects, only positives in the reduction of this peak runoff from this site.
All right. Is the road and its placement, is that in conformance with the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
All right. Now, I'd like to go on, if I could, to the report of Omland Engineering. All right. So I might just say, Mr. Chairman, on page 2 of the Omland report, we agree with all items except number 7, which has to do with it's a suggestion about making the parking spaces smaller. And right, Mr. Giacinto?
Yes.
All right. So all of the other items are agreed to.
Okay.
Now let's move on to page 2. What about number 8?
This actually ties in with comment 7 somewhat. As a result of the project, there is a total of 17 parking spaces that are being lost. A portion of those occurs by the development of this road over by Cabrini Hall. And then there's, I believe, 6 spaces being lost over where Duffy Hall is. Going back to comment number 7 about making these small car, 16-foot long parking spaces, there's 2 concerns. One, the idea is that this parking lot is going to be predominantly for visitors that are coming to the building. You know, this is going to be one of the main focuses for visitors and prospective students and families and things like that. And then we're taking the aisle width within that parking lot is set at the minimum allowable per the code. Further reduction of those spaces we feel would just make the lot too tight and create problems.
Now, would you address item 10, which has to do with the relocation of a portion of the fence?
Looking back at the overall site plan, where I had mentioned that there's a portion of the access road around Cabrini Hall that's going to get widened to facilitate truck access. We are pushing the fence. What we're going to do and what we've discussed is looking at tightening that to minimize the amount that the fence shifts from its existing location, but while still safely allowing these trucks to navigate this corner. Right now there is, I want to say, an approximately 8 to 10 foot push of the fence, which mimics the 10-foot expansion of that road at that corner. But again, we've talked about looking at that and trying to tighten things up and do a little more control to reduce that, so that's something we're going to continue to look at.
So you'll work with Omland about that?
Yes.
Okay. And as to number of 11, you've testified about the footprint, is that correct?
Yeah, I guess there's a question about whether or not the numbers that we've represented for the footprint include this loading dock area, and that is correct. This 86,000, almost 87,000 square foot footprint includes the bold line of the building as well as this loading area that I clarified before.
All right. Number 12, does the university agree to provide a construction plan and schedule?
Yes,
At the time of construction?
yes,
13, will you submit a staging plan?
yes,
14, would you give the water and sewer locations for the dining facility?
yes.
Okay, so you'll put those on the plans?
Yeah, there was just a misprint on one of the drawings. The water service connection to the temporary dining facility didn't show up on one drawing.
Okay. So you'll add that to the plans, correct?
Yeah, it's just a matter of turning on the right layer. There's a water main that exists that feeds the building. We're going to reroute to feed the university center, and then there'll be a tap off for the university or for the temporary dining facility. I think there was a question regarding services, since we're talking about sewer and water. We did do an evaluation on the sewer generation from the existing, the sanitary sewer generated from the existing university center and Duffy Hall versus the proposed project. There's actually, based on the uses and the size of the spaces, there's actually a slight reduction of about 1,000 gallons per day in sanitary flow. And we've actually sent this information over to the joint meeting of Essex and Union County, which is a treatment facility. They've reviewed it and agreed that the calculations are correct based on the uses for the building. So there is a slight decrease in the sewer that's going to be generated from this area, replacement of those two buildings. Water demand we haven't evaluated, but water typically goes in line with the sewer, so we're anticipating it's going to be approximately the same.
I'm happy that the county understands that, but to my simple way of thinking, adding almost 100,000 square feet and having less sewage just doesn't make sense.
I agree.
I don't know, maybe people will pish less.
I agree and I understand. What we did is we took the state generated table that defines demand based on uses, populations for specific uses. DEP issues this table as part of what's called the treatment works approval process. We broke down spaces in the existing building, uses, areas, number of occupants, as they fit into various categories for both Duffy Hall and the University Center, and then again for this proposed use, and the result was negative 100 or 1,100.
Okay, so I'm to understand that a building that's almost 100,000 square feet larger than the previous space will have less usage than the previous building?
We'll have less sanitary flow, yes.
No. We'll have less usage, we'll have less people in it, and therefore less usage than the previous building? Is that what I'm to understand?
That's not a direct
So
answer.
you have 115,000 square feet, it's going to be 204,000 square
Yes.
feet, right? So if I follow the goldfish rule, that activity grows to the size of the container, right? Then the goldfish rule would tell me there will be more people in the building, not less people in the building. So and you're telling me that based on the usage, that my conclusion is inaccurate. You're telling me my conclusion is inaccurate?
I agree with the way you're coming to your conclusion, but based on the state sanitary sewer calculations, your conclusion is incorrect.
Okay, so you're going to serve less meals in this building than you've served before, you're going to have less activity with less food activities than you had before, and you're going to have less people in the building who will generate less waste. That's what you're telling me.
Well,
There will be less waste based on the calculations, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Department of Environmental Protection puts out tables and standards for what people should expect to generate in terms of sewage. And you applied those tables, is that correct?
Yes,
And is that how you would do any new building today?
yes.
You wouldn't rely on something that was done 40 or 50 years ago?
No.
I think that's what he's saying.
It's a mystery, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
If we haven't seen those calculations, if you could provide them, maybe I can enlighten board members as to
Yep, be happy to.
And if you could also, with those calculations, show how it was calculated today for what you currently have. I mean, I think the understanding is somewhere, sometime, somebody did the calculations previously, which said you needed more than what the current calculation says that shows that you need less. I think it's trying to understand why that would have been a reduction versus an increase.
Putting aside the calculation, will the facility have a legally authorized sewer connection?
Yes.
And I think that's the point. You know, the calculations are sort of irrelevant to the main point. It's going to be properly sewered.
Despite, just, I know Eric's looking at me, I know what he's thinking. Despite the fact that we are doing a reduction in the sanitary flow, we will be required to go to the state for a permit. I spoke to both the joint meeting, the treatment facility, their interpretation was we didn't need a permit. When I spoke to the state, their decision, their determination, and the way they interpret their rules is that what exists doesn't matter. We're doing a whole brand new building. We have to submit an application to the treatment facility as well as the state to get this permitted.
Okay, so if I may just belabor the point one more moment, which is if the usage that is being proposed, for how long do you think that usage will last? And if the usage being proposed is X, do you think 5 years from now the usage, however the university or student groups or whoever determine what they want to use the building for, will be X plus? And is that a consideration?
Is any building designed to current standards of what's required? An office building?
Yes. This building's being designed to the proposed uses and allocation of spaces that are being submitted and both in the architectural plans that you have as well as what will be used for permitting purposes.
Okay.
I agree and I understand that there's some disconnect with the logic. I'm just going by the state calculations and the way they make me do things.
Just have to talk to my logic professor.
All right, so just going on with page 4, John, paragraphs 17, 18, 21, 22, and 23 are all suggestions by Amlin. Will you consider all those suggestions?
Yes, we're going to review all these and address them with Omland.
Okay. Now, paragraph 24, can you address that to the board?
Actually, that's going to be addressed by the architect.
Okay. 25, you just testified you're going to need to get a treatment works approval.
Yes, we are.
26, you're asked to provide water flow calculations. Will you provide that?
Yes, we're going to analyze that as well and determine what we need to do for permitting.
Okay. What about 27, this rain garden?
Yes, we agree. I think 27 and 29 actually discuss the rain garden, and we have no issues with reducing the pipe to minimize the impact by what's planted in there.
28, you'll provide the plan requested, a tree removal plan.
Yes.
30, you provided a new landscaping plan, is that correct?
Yes.
31, you'll consider the suggestion there?
Yeah, our landscape department has been looking at alternatives. They're actually recommending something called a black gum tree species. Again, we'll coordinate that with Omland.
34, is that signage okay?
Yeah, we're going to review that as well.
33 is a recommendation about shade trees, is that all right?
Yes.
Lights, 35 lights you've already testified about?
Yes?
Correct?
Yep.
Um,
Well, just staying on 35, he didn't testify as to timers on the lights.
My understanding is that the intent is those lights will remain on most of the evening.
And these are the lights along the access drive?
Yeah, there'd be the lights along the service drive between the service road and the landscape buffer.
I don't think so.
Emergency generators suggestion, 37, is that?
I believe the university is looking into that. I'm not working on that piece.
Concrete, 38?
Yep, that's not a problem.
That's agreeable?
Yep,
39,
39 is agreeable too.
okay. 42, the maintenance manual, is that okay?
Yes,
43, the traffic and parking assessment during construction, that would be on your construction
we're going to
plan?
be providing some information on that as we coordinate with the construction manager for the project down the future. The intent of the university is to submit documents to the city for review, I believe to Sal's office as part of the permit applications.
44 similarly?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Counselor, just a question on
Yeah.
construction. How many construction vehicles do you anticipate per day? With, talking about cement mixers and everything else. And keep in mind, this is going to be a duration from a year to 2 years.
Right, well, when the project moves forward to being built, there's a construction manager will be hired to do the project and to figure all that out and actually put it into a construction staging plan and deal with all of those issues. I mean, that's a roundabout way of saying, we don't know.
And what
Okay.
about the hours of construction?
Within the city ordinance, within the,
So that's, I'm trying to remember, that's what, 6 days a week? Our ordinance?
The ordinance? I think it is 6.
What?
I believe it is.
So it's 6 days a week from 8 in the morning until, I think it's 5 or 6, I forget.
no, you wouldn't want to be paying Saturday rates, but maybe it's
Well,
possible
but that's, I mean,
occasionally.
you're saying within the ordinance, so that's what the ordinance, I believe, provides. And what about, again, I'll ask the question, are you making any road cuts onto South Orange roads for water, sewer, or what have you?
What we've done is attempted to minimize the cuts into South Orange Avenue. All of the connections for the services are actually going to be made within that lawn area in the front, using the existing service lines.
So you don't have to cut up any roads?
At this point, based on the coordination effort we've done to date, the plan is not to do that.
Now, are you prepared, I mean, I have a letter from Langen talking about traffic. And it basically says there's no need for a traffic study. I beg to differ. And very frankly, I think a traffic study is necessary when you look at the entire configuration of the site and what you're changing. Even though we're looking at a piecemeal here, there was another one that was approved, and I don't know what else is coming on. But, I mean, I, for one, looking at the number of roads and not knowing your student projections and so forth, and you're adding 77,000 square feet, 77% of larger building, I will submit that you probably need the traffic study. You may not think so, but I, for one, do think you need one.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter as much as what I think or anybody else thinks. The law certainly does not require us to provide a traffic study. I think we discussed this perhaps on the other building, and I think it was agreed that is the state of the law in New Jersey today. And so we are within the zoning ordinance.
Counselor,
Yeah.
is that a matter of,
Yes, Mr. Miller.
so our approval can't be based on a traffic study?
Right.
All right, do you have anything you want to add to your testimony?
Doesn't mean you can't ask questions.
No, I think I've covered
I've got the answers.
No, I think I've covered everything.
Can I, one other question? You're losing 17 parking spaces.
That's correct.
Are you requesting a variance for that? Does that meet within the parameters of space allowed? Is there any issue with that?
Campus actually has more spaces than are required at this
Okay.
time. So the reduction, we're still above that.
So it's for our information, but it does not affect the overall numbers based on the campus and whatever all the calculations are,
Right.
correct? Thank you.
Answer questions about the service road?
Sorry.
Are you the witness to answer questions about the service road?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, unless they're operational, that would be
No.
Mr.
The
Grubby.
majority of the questions, yes.
So in looking at the map, the distance between the property line and the edge of the road is 1.6 feet. That's what I have on your site plan service road. CS 102 drawing.
I believe that is correct. I do not have that drawing mounted on the board in front of me, but I do recall it being about 2 feet. And
Well-
again, that's the area where we said, I mentioned that we were
1.5
going to look
feet.
at.
And is that the area that you said you were going to try to pull back a little?
Yes.
And pull back to what?
We're going to try and pick up as much as we can, but safely allow the trucks to make that turn.
Do you have a quantification to as much as you can?
I do not at this time.
Okay. Why is it, don't trucks already use the existing service road around, is this Cabrini?
Cabrini in the corner, yes.
Yeah, don't trucks already use this
Most-
existing service road?
Yes, most of what uses this service road to access Fahey Hall is smaller trucks, such as dumpster pickup trucks, garbage trucks, your smaller service. This road the new road is set up to handle the larger tractor trailer trucks.
But is this, yeah, I don't like that too much. You're pulling the road way out though. You're pulling the road way out toward the property line from the existing road, and while I realize that I guess what I'm trying to figure out is it the radius that you think you need because of the length of the tractor trailer trucks that are going to be servicing the new university center? Or couldn't you pull the whole thing back, this elbow here, because your existing road is nowhere near, it looks like you've got an additional at least 12 feet there,
It's about 10 feet,
10 feet.
10, or maybe 12 more exactly. In the set of drawings that were submitted with the application, there is a traffic circulation sheet. That does show the depictions of these trucks making the route around the building, coming in, around Cabrini Hall, as well as accessing the service road and then exiting back out. And that area over there, trying to make that turn dictated the size of that.
But I had a question about that as well, because one of the statements you made earlier was about having two-way traffic at that point.
Yes.
Is that the reason it needs to be wider, because you're looking at two-way traffic? I mean, when you also talk about the number of trucks coming in during the day being, I think you said approximately 16?
7 to 15. was
Seven,
the
right,
number that
throughout
was
the
mentioned.
entire day. Like a lot of places, especially the delivery trucks, people plan deliveries, so they would even plan deliveries so that you don't have conflicts with trucks. And
My
therefore, even at that point in time, if you narrow down the entrance,
No, I understand what
when you
you're
get
saying.
further down, you have a delay.
A little more control and
Control
could
the
help
entrance.
reduce this. And that's part of what I was kind of referring to when I said we were going to look at this a little more.
Right.
And we were going to have some more discussions as to what we can do to kind of pull that off of fence line
Right. Because I mean, just
and
in
control how the trucks come in and access while still maintaining two-way traffic for some vehicles, but maybe not two
Or-
tractor trailers trying to make the turn at
or
the same
maybe
time.
right. if a tractor trailer can make it through there with with one lane, then multiple vehicles, cars can make it through there because of the radius the truck's gonna take. So, just looking at that and seeing that additional 10 feet that you've added, and I was looking closely, there's a light blue line that kind of shows what the existing road was before, which seems a little more adequate by the slight radius of that for a tractor trailer. That going back and looking at some of the things, you may be able to pull that back.
Again, I don't have that drawing in front of me, but,
Yeah.
you know, the idea would be to tighten that up and address the comments that were in the review letters as well as the comments that are coming from the members of the board.
In concert with whether you do or you don't, your landscape buffer diagram shows existing trees to remain, and right at that area you have 3 trees. You actually have, it looks like 6 existing, one's out by the sidewalk. But certainly the easternmost 3 trees, if the road is right up against that tree, those trees, they're gonna die. If they're existing, you're gonna be cutting into their root system, and they're not gonna survive. So the problem is you haven't left yourself, if you can't pull it back, and I'm not satisfied with your answer, quite frankly, but if you can't pull it back and you're left with this 1.5 feet, or even 2 feet, that's not going to be enough to have really any buffer whatsoever survive.
That's part of the reason that we want to explore pulling this in, to keep the vegetation, to help keep that area screened, as well as to allow the trucks and, again, I apologize, I don't have the drawing in front of me. My recollection is that if we do pull this in, I'm not going to say we can pull it back to the existing curb line, but I'm confident that we can reduce the addition to some extent and still have vehicles make that access in and out of that area.
Okay. Same question, really. What's going on with this great big bulb out here before you get to the loading dock? Because that seems huge. So unless the tractor trailer is going to sort of angle in or K-turn in and back up to the loading dock, I don't know why you would need such a large paved area there. You're outside of the 30-foot setback, but still.
A standard tractor trailer requires between 100 and 120-foot radius circle to make a turn. So what's happening here is when the truck comes down, he turns, and if you look at that traffic circulation plan, the tightest he can turn does take up most of that space. He'll do basically 180 and then back into the loading dock.
Okay,
But he does need this area to turn around.
Is he going to be able to do that with a 48-foot semi and an 18-foot cab? Or?
Yes.
And you'll have, I was thinking the same question that Janine had. What I'd like to see are those plans that show all the truck movements.
Yeah.
So
They were in the set that was
set?
submitted to the board.
Okay.
I apologize, I didn't bring that mounted.
They're on sheet CP 101.
C101?
Yeah.
Okay. Take a look at that. Just had a question. I love the idea of all the trees, but adding all those trees, just thinking about what the impact is on the sidewalk. Because, even though it may not in one sense reduce the amount of lighting on those sidewalks, it does reduce the visibility. And I think one of the things that probably makes people feel safe and secure, more so than they may, is the fact that the buildings that are there probably can see the sidewalk a little bit. At this point, you're going to eliminate all that by putting the trees in there. I mean, they do one thing really well in blocking the visibility of the trucks. They do other things kind of opposite of that by blocking visibility of people. And any additional lighting that may have come from those buildings to light that street is just something to think about.
I understand what you're saying. I think the distance of those buildings from the street and the fact that most of this is the back side of the buildings, my interpretation would be that very little light contributes to that area from the buildings. I did recently hear that PSE&G has actually installed a few more Cobra heads on this road to increase some of the lighting. And again, I don't think our lighting for this service road is going to impact the road very much because of the plantings that are going to be sort of blocking a lot of that and the shielding that those lights have.
On the topic of lighting, I'd be interested in perhaps hearing a little bit more about how some of the lighting on the service road maybe could impact the sidewalk. I think there's a lot of people who feel that the street along the sidewalk along South Orange Ave is not well lit enough. It's something I know that we've talked about in the village. I know it's something we've talked about with Seton Hall before, especially as a route for students to walk up, at the end of the night. So as this entire thing is happening, I would love to hear how much it would cost if you're already installing light heads, somewhere around here, how much it would cost, and whether it's possible to have lights that are also going to improve the lighting on the sidewalk, because the Cobra overhead lights are great for they're okay for the street, but they don't really do anything for the sidewalks.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Before we had this extensive landscaping, the idea and the thought was that it was a benefit that the lights along this service road would provide some light to that sidewalk. There definitely wouldn't be enough light to impact the roadway or across the roadway, because these are not light fixtures. The addition of this landscape screening to kind of hide the service road kind of counteracts the ability of the lights to be able to provide anything on the sidewalk. I think sidewalk lighting is going to be limited to PSE&G type Cobra heads unless I know there's the specific fixture that looks like the old candle burning fixture that the municipality uses, unless they start looking at adding that. I don't know what the intent is by PSE&G though.
I guess my sort of question to you, or perhaps to someone,
I think what we can do is maybe, taking your suggestion to heart, we can have the engineers try to work out a plan to increase the lighting on that sidewalk.
because the marginal cost might be less if we're already running wires through the ground or already installing light posts.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure exactly the technical details, but that's something that would be great if that could be considered. That would benefit residents, students. I think everybody would be a little happier.
I'll do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
One thing that could be done, hearing some of your comments, is maybe instead of a continuous planting buffer along South Orange Avenue, is maybe to create some gaps in that and have those gaps correspond to where the lights are on the service road, so that in addition to adding some lights, is that there's spillover from those lights to the street. And also, I'm surprised that we didn't hear this from Seton Hall about wanting to do this, so that you can see this beautiful new building that they want to build, instead of having all the trees along the road and you can't see the building at all. So I think we can, hearing your comments, come up with maybe a balance between that, of providing screening, providing some additional lights, buffering the road for the vehicles that are using it, and try and reach a balance. Or we can leave it and just add some lights,
Well, I think Seton Hall is hearing what we're saying. They're making the suggestion to look back into lighting and how we can add additional lights. So I think the expectation would be
We'd be happy to do that.
what you'll come back with.
And
to present to us. Yes.
And to maybe tack on one more thing there, and this doesn't really have to be discussed now, but just so I don't forget to mention it to somebody, is that as you're doing this, I know there are some plans in the long term to improve security camera use by Seton Hall along the perimeter. I just want to make sure that whoever's thinking about that is thinking about as far as the lights going up. If you're running electrical wires and other things, that's being thought about in tandem. I'm not sure if that's something for us to even discuss, but just wanted to make sure that that's being thought about.
I would just caution, there are still residential homes along there, and I'd be careful with how much light is going to spill out and how much view you're going to have through the trees into the buildings. I mean, we do have residents that are living there. I understand your
Yeah, I mean, I assume, low lit, like gas lamp type lights on a sidewalk is going to improve sidewalk visibility, improve pedestrian safety. I don't think that's going to impact anybody living across the street of a 4-lane road.
No, but if you start reducing the landscaping, as I just heard maybe they could do, then you're opening gaps up.
Well, no, we're saying reduce the landscaping from what's proposed in the way of additional, but not taking down more than what's there. And right now, if you look
Okay,
at
I
what's...
just want to make sure that we're clear, because we do have homeowners. and
No, this is
residents
saying
that
don't
live
add
there.
as many new trees as currently being shown on the plan.
I just want to go back to this service road. I wonder if there was an agreement with the village, maybe you could dig it out, or at least pinpoint a year or something so we could dig it out, because you know, there's an access road directly on the side of the proposed university center, and while I'm not that concerned, I mean, I think you need to pull it back a little by Cabrini Hall. I'm not terribly concerned about that because I think that the buffering will tend to work. But what you have right across from South Orange Avenue and is a loading dock. I mean, really, you have a loading dock, an active loading dock, even though it may be only 12 or 17 trucks, maybe only half of them or even a third of them are tractor trailers. But, you know, loading docks are very ugly. They're very impervious looking, and they're you know, I don't know, I can think of a lot of adjectives, I won't go into them, but that, no matter how much buffering you're going to use, you're putting that right next to the lawn that you use for, you know, some of your more important activities, and I just wonder if it wouldn't be worth it. I realize that you don't have to do a traffic plan, and I'm not actually concerned at all about the traffic on South Orange Avenue in the manner in which you know, facilities that have a curb cut onto the roadway and need a circulation plan. I'm just worried about the impact and the design and the aesthetic on the university campus itself. It seems like it's not just that you're exposing your rear loading dock area to South Orange Avenue and the neighborhood, because there's probably enough of a buffer with the trees and South Orange Avenue being as wide it is there that it may not have much of an impact. I think it's going to have more of an impact on the university itself. I mean, I realize you're thinking of the university center as facing your, you know, your center lawn. I don't know what, I assume that has a name, I just don't know what it is, and so on and so forth. But still, this is an important area here, this lawn area, and forever you're going to be having tractor trailers pulling in, you know, angling, coming back, the sound of brakes, you know, the unloading, the dock, you know, so it seems like it would be worth it to spend some time with a transportation engineer to figure out whether there is an impact to South Orange Avenue as well as to internal circulation within the university, to reuse somehow one of the access points that has been closed now, you know, one of the other gates, because it's not very many trucks, but it would leave less of a permanent scar in this area of your lawn.
I just want to make sure you understand all the details of this. This is not an open loading dock area.
I did understand that.
Okay, it is
Yeah,
closed.
it's covered, and it's covered.
It's got the terrace on top of it. The majority of vehicles will actually pull all the way in.
All the way in.
There will be a couple tractor trailers that are sticking out when they're unloading. They're there to unload and leave. They don't park. Nobody parks here overnight. Nobody stays there. And the university, the architect, ourselves have all, you know, worked on this design, and they're comfortable that the buffering around this service roadway will screen this enough for them to still be able to use this lawn, as well as screen it from South Orange Avenue. And one of the important things is maintaining this lawn area near this old former entrance that's been shut down, as well as, you know, along South Orange Avenue, because that's where they do hold some of their functions, some commencements, things like that. Ideally, they do not want vehicles trekking in across this lawn, because then they lose the functionality of that lawn itself.
That's not
Additionally,
what I wasn't suggesting that. I was
Okay.
suggesting that you explore some other alternatives. You're
Additionally,
creating a very long service road along South Orange Avenue when, in fact, the place where you're turning your trucks is, 30 feet off or 35 feet off the road. It just seems like a lot of pavement and a lot of ugliness for something that's could functionally be achieved in a different way. I just posit that you may have some other alternatives to explore.
I'm sure the university is willing to explore and look at alternatives.
I mean, you have to have a loading dock somewhere. I
Right.
mean, and you're not gonna, and the university does not want it facing the center of the campus.
No, I'm not
Which is
saying-
kind of where it is right now, correct? Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should move the loading dock. I understand the loading dock will stay the same place. It's accessing the loading dock that I'm saying could have some other, I mean, I don't know what the reason was to close the gates in particular. I mean, if it had to do with pedestrians, that's entirely different than traffic, but
So are you suggesting that they make a cut onto South Orange Avenue right into that large circle?
well, I would look at 2 or 3 different ways of doing it if I were looking to explore. If you don't want to explore other things, that's perfectly fine. It just seems like a lot of, I mean, this is not going to be a, pretty little traffic circle here.
We had done, our office had actually done some quick studies of providing a more direct access. And what that does is creates such a large opening on the frontage that you're going to see all of it. You'll see the whole loading dock. That you will not be able to buffer it if they try and go directly in. Because the problem is, with the trucks turning in and trying to get out in the various directions, particularly as you head out and try and head north on South Orange Avenue, the swing to stay in those lanes creates such a large driveway opening that you really just open this whole frontage up. And we did a couple studies across from Elm, up a little from Elm, a little down from Elm, and it results in this very large, wide open driveway. And our feeling was it would be better to not have that directly into South Orange Avenue and keep it off on the property so that it could be streamed.
One last question. Did you consider making the road not as wide and doing something like a stoplight or a microphone or something when you come in, the truck is there, call in and say, lift the gate and come in down that road, or so that it wasn't as wide? I mean, I appreciate that you did other studies. I think that's great.
I mean, that actually is a great idea, and no, that's not something we talked about.
Because it may help with the space in the turn, and because except for those semi-trailer trucks, a truck and a car can still get by, emergency vehicles can still access, and we still protect that. You don't need to use up all that space.
Is it possible that, I know that a few people may want to take a break for a minute.
I think that'd be a good idea.
We'll come back. I know you have questions in the audience, the public has questions, and we're not going to let anybody get away with that, but I think we just need to take a 15-minute break, 2-minute break, 3-minute break, 5-minute break. 5-minute break, and we'll come back and continue where we are. All right. Okay.
Okay. Let me just repeat that. I thought before we go on with the public questioning of the last witness, with your approval, I might call Mr. Signorello from the university, who'll just quickly answer the points that were raised by Ms. Bauer about the process that led to this general design. And maybe that will elucidate the process going forward.
I think that'd be fine if it's quick, but otherwise
Quick.
I'd like to get the public.
Quick,
I can't.
absolutely. All right.
Has to be sworn in.
Needs to be. Do you swear affirm the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
John Signorello, Seton Hall University, 400 South Orange Avenue, South Orange, New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right. And what is your position at Seton Hall?
I'm the Associate Vice President for Facilities and Operations.
All right. And were you involved in the thinking and that led to this present design of the University Center?
Yes, I was.
All right. And could you just quickly tell the board what you evaluated before coming to this design?
Yes, I will. I'm going to refer to Exhibit A3, which was the site plan. What led to the evaluation that led to the selection of the service road design was we looked at every facet of the campus and every corner of the building in terms of, this is a building that really has no back. It has 4 fronts, okay? When we looked at the existing McNulty Gate entryway that was closed several years ago, this access road brings you right into the center of campus and would have had to bring you right across the front of the new University Center. And it's not a controlled intersection. It would have put traffic out onto South Orange Avenue in an undesirable location. That was one of the reasons why it was closed to begin with. So that's why that selection didn't make the top of the list. We also looked at, I believe somebody said, cutting a new opening onto South Orange Avenue. And again, I think you have the same issues. You would have another uncontrolled access onto South Orange Avenue, which, by the way, would just about be across the street from the side streets that run along South Orange Avenue. Again, you would create probably a larger problem at that location than you would with the current service road as it's proposed. We also looked at the other side of the building where we currently bring trucks in along Seton Drive, and even today we have to try to turn tractor trailers around at the corner of Seton Drive and Madison Avenue, or about approximately where the library is, Building 10. That is a very difficult intersection for a tractor trailer to maneuver in terms of the size of the intersection. Not only are they dealing with the size of the intersection for the truck to turn around, but they're also dealing with the fact that this is the main artery through the campus, and many times vehicular traffic would be stopped for quite a few minutes while a truck tries to maneuver that corner. And many times with the larger tractor trailers, they have to actually do almost a K-turn in the intersection and back all the way up Madison to get to the current building. So they're backing a tractor trailer in an area where there's a high volume of pedestrian traffic crossing the road in 2 points. One at the library and at the other main artery between the 2 halves of campus. And also, at that point, there was no spot to bring a loading dock in, based on the layout of the building. Okay? We also looked at another location. Is it possible that we move from this intersection and move to the other side of the Duffy lot and bring it in between the new University Center and Xavier Hall, which is Building 9? Again, you're into the main traffic flow of the university, and you're having to stop traffic to try to get a truck to do a K-turn and back down that road. And again, you're in a high pedestrian area. What we feel with the service road where it's proposed, we are separating truck traffic from the vehicle traffic that's a continuous flow onto campus. We're separating it from the pedestrian traffic that's on campus. And in addition to servicing the building, it's providing emergency access to the rear of these buildings, which we never had in the past. And that was looked upon very favorable by Chief Markey. We did have a sit down and review these plans with him. So what you're actually getting today in the proposed service road is
We are not changing the traffic flow onto campus. It will still enter the way it normally does, either down South Orange Avenue, in through the Farinella Gate at the main entrance, or from 280 down Center Street into the main entrance. So you're not changing the traffic that's currently flowing through this controlled intersection. All you're doing is rerouting that traffic once you do get it on campus. There was some question, in terms of the loading dock is facing the front of the building, or facing South Orange Avenue. We recognize that. We tried to put the loading dock actually between two buildings, so it's not right out in front of the building. One of the reasons why we made it an enclosed loading dock, so when trucks are in there, they wouldn't be seen, and there would be some times when some trucks, it would extend out. We put it in a place where everything at night, the doors can come down and it could all be closed and not seen from the roadway in terms of what the dock looked like today. I think if you came to campus today and you saw the way trucks enter and have to turn around at one of the highest pedestrian crossings on campus, you would find it to be a very dangerous situation. We were trying to eliminate that at this point. So there was a very extensive review of where this should be, and this we feel was the best selection to separate it from pedestrian traffic and to separate it from the constant flow of vehicular traffic that comes onto campus and provide another emergency access to the building.
Okay.
Any questions?
I think this time we'll have public questions.
Right, Mr. John DiGiacinto or Mr.?
I think it'll just be of everyone at this point.
Okay,
Whatever
whoever's-
public question we have.
All right, well, they're both here.
Right.
Okay.
Come.
Yes.
Yes.
John Gay from 10 Elm Court. How you doing? Thanks, guys, for coming. I appreciate it. I'm going to take one stab at the sewer thing here. I'm sorry, but the calculations that you've done for that, they're based upon current usage, is that what you're saying, or projected usage for the new construction, correct?
Yes,
So, but is there any...
Sir, can you talk into the
Oh, sorry, is there
microphone?
any accounting for, again, perhaps maybe more students attend the university and usage then goes up? Is that taken into the calculation or it's not?
It's not per se.
Okay.
The DEP table clearly specifies different uses and how they're applied. It's a rather lengthy table, but there's certain things like, for an office space, there's 0.1 gallons per square foot of office space. No matter what that office is used for, that's the number. For a retail space, it's the same number. For dining facilities, it's based on the number of seats and a certain gallonage per seat. Auditorium, it's per seat. So what we did is looked at, again, the existing and the proposed, all the spaces that are included in this building, what this type of space is, how it fits in the category, and then applied the DEP requirements.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I was just curious.
Nope,
about that. What I really want to ask you about a little more is the service road. You see this drawing here, I guess, with the trees and everything. There was another one you had up before. I think that was the more accurate version, I guess, if you will. Yeah, I think that's the one.
The overall
So
site
if we had to compare the two of these, I'm sorry, sure, it's
It's a CS.
CS120. I don't know if that's.
No, this
marked
is
on
part
there.
of the full set, A5.
Okay.
Part of A5.
And then that one, as far as the scale and everything, would probably be more accurate than this other one over here, right? This one with the color one, which is not marked either, I guess? Or is it?
No, that's A6. up in the
A6.
corner. They're both to scale, they're at different scales.
Okay. All right. As far as the turn there, when you did the initial calculations for the size of the road needed here to make this turn,
Yes.
you followed whatever the standard procedures are for determining what
Yeah, we
the size
basically
would be?
use AASHTO standards and truck templates. There's a program, drafting program that we use internal to a program called AutoCAD.
Okay.
It's called AutoTurn. They've taken the templates and the restrictions on those templates so that you can actually generate a full maneuver of turning, driving, however you want to do it.
Okay, because a truck is going to have to come in and make basically a 90-degree turn there, right?
Yes, truck would come in, they'd make a right-hand turn as they pass the guard booth. They'd come around Cabrini Hall, make the 90-degree left-hand turn, and then
Go
come
down.
down.
Okay, so you mentioned that you thought you might be able to tighten things up a little bit. But
Yes.
realistically, it's not going to be tightened up much, right? I mean, there's no way,
Several feet at,
Several
would
would
be
be-
at the most.
all right.
It's not, again, I mentioned, we will not be able to bring it back to the existing curb line
Yeah.
to be able to facilitate a truck.
And right now where it is you're 2 feet away from the property line? I know you're trying to scale it back a little bit, but about 2 feet.
About 2 feet from the property line,
All
yes.
right. And you may be able to scale that back just a couple of feet?
I can't give you an exact answer, I apologize, but my feeling is we can probably pick up 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. I
Okay.
would have to sit and play with it on the computer to
All right.
see how to.
So, but again, just so we're clear, that's within the 30-foot, you're already within the 30-foot buffer zone there as it is, right?
That is the 30-foot setback, yes.
Yeah, and so now we're going further into the 30-foot setback, right?
Yes.
So,
Not with the building, though.
no, not with the building, but with this, so this is not part of, I mean, I'm not an expert in this area, but you're saying this is not considered part of what's
The
necessary for a
setback, the
setback?
30-foot setback applies to buildings.
But not to a street?
Well, wouldn't be considered a street, it'd be considered a
Well,
driveway.
it's a two-lane road, basically, right?
It's a large driveway, yes.
Okay, all right.
Do you
Okay.
have you have
I mean,
a specific question as well?
yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, I mean, he's saying there's no variance necessary for this. It seems to me like if he's going into the buffer zone, perhaps the variance would be necessary for this. So, again,
Yes.
Make sort of an objection. Setback is defined as related to buildings.
Yes.
all right, okay. All right, so then, as far as the street itself, or the service road, how wide is that going to be approximately?
It's proposed as, for the majority of it, is 24 feet, 2 12-foot aisles, 12-foot lanes, to about this point where it starts to flare out, and then we have the turnaround area.
Basically, a two-lane road is going to be going in that area.
Yes.
All right, and then the turnaround is, how big is the turnaround there?
That's on the order of 100-foot diameter.
All right, so there's going to be two-lane
Again,
road plus a
just
100-foot
not to
diameter?
rush, is there a question you need to ask? A lot of this detail they went over earlier, and I don't want to keep going back and over the same information
Okay,
again.
well,
Is there a question that you're trying to get to when asking them?
Excuse me, but others of us would like to hear it.
Yeah, I think-
Just the same questions, because what's up there is misleading. It is.
Well,
Ma'am, they can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you.
No, it's okay. No,
Don't just
I'm
lose
sorry. Just so we're clear, I have been speaking to some people out in the audience. I think there are some, perhaps you guys understand it, but we don't
Okay,
understand it, and we would like to understand it a little bit better. So I apologize if I'm wasting time, but.
It's not
you
wasting
know.
time, just want to get, just so in case there's anybody else who wants to have something to ask as well.
Sure.
If
I
there's a
understand.
question you want to ask,
Okay.
just ask the question
All right.
instead of,
Yeah,
that's all.
okay. All right, then let me move to the loading dock area. This is there was another one you had up before that had a close-up of what the loading dock was going to look like? Yeah, I think this is it.
Yep. This is,
So that's CS 101?
correct.
All right, and then this is a close-up of the loading dock up there?
Yeah, this is an enlargement of this portion right here.
So what's going to be contained, I'm not clear on what's above ground, what's open to the public here.
Okay. As you approach, this is an outdoor terrace area that's above the loading dock. The loading dock's approximately 14 feet in height. This, from this turnaround area, there is a drop of several feet that brings you down into the loading dock, which is this lower area. There's going to be 2 overhead doors. There's a couple truck loading spots, and there's some dumpsters, as well as space reserved for PSE&G to access their transformers.
So that's where the garbage is going to be kept?
Garbage will be kept inside the building in roll-off dumpsters.
Okay. And am I correct, this is South Orange Avenue here, so this is going to be facing directly
Correct.
to South Orange Avenue? So if I come out of my driveway and I'm driving down South Orange Avenue, I'll be able to see this?
If you're driving on South Orange Avenue,
Or maybe looking out my
the
window?
idea is you would, or ideally, the plan with the vegetation and this planting is that the heights of these plants will screen vehicles as well as all of this, because, as I mentioned, this comes up, you come up off of South Orange Ave into this circular turnaround area, and then it drops back down several feet to the loading dock to help push the loading dock down rather than bringing it up. You know, we had looked at some options of lowering this road and coming in level, and we thought it'd be better to use this. Not that it's a berm, but it helps keep it up while you push the loading dock down to minimize impacts.
Okay, I'll still be able to see it though, right?
There'll be quite a bit of vegetation.
But I'll still be able to see it, right?
Ideally, I would say the answer is no,
Okay.
but I can't guarantee that.
All right. I
You're not
mean, the
gonna see
pictures
one
we
piece.
saw that you put up with the trunks of the trees and stuff, I mean, from here, I mean, I can see all this down here, and this is where the road is going to be, basically, right?
Yes.
So I'll definitely be able to see it from the
It's
road.
important to note, you know, this is the most extensive area that we're trying to buffer. The plans that were originally submitted had a buffer approximately in this area. This new plan is extending that buffer so that this whole service road, as well as most of the vehicles, will be screened to the extent possible.
I
to
understand,
keep
but
the views
this,
out of people.
but I'm still going to be able to see it from the road. I know you're going to do the best you can with the screening. I'm not
Yeah, I
doubting
mean,
that, but I mean, the bottom line is I'm still
Our
going to be able
goal
to see
is
it.
that you will see little to nothing. That's our goal.
I understand, that's the goal, but is that, doesn't look like that's really achievable though, based on what I can see here from the pictures and elsewhere.
There's not a lot, I mean, I would slightly disagree that there's not a lot that you can see through here. I think it's also important to note, this portion here is more of this area here, not so much looking directly at the loading dock where the denser buffering with evergreens, large shrubs, shade trees. These evergreens are going to help really block that year-round.
Yes.
I mean, again, this is a conceptual landscaping plan. Certainly, it's one that can be revised and with the comments of the board. And we'll certainly be pleased to submit something that's somewhat different.
Well, the question I was going to ask you is, what is it you're looking to, are you looking to have them achieve from that? Is it that you want zero visibility, or you just want to see?
Well, what I'd like to achieve is that there's not a service road running right in front of my property, basically. I mean, I understand, I'm not trying to be unreasonable.
I'm sorry, where's your property?
10 Elm Court.
Okay.
It's right
On the other side of South Orange Ave.
right here, and when I pull out every morning to go to work, sometimes I go this way, sometimes I go this way. Whenever I go out to take a walk or do anything, it's right there in my face. Literally, the loading dock section here is almost directly facing me.
Well, one of the things, I mean, and maybe that would help if we had that, would be an elevation of what that would look like from the street. Because from the plan, not being in their defense at all, but just trying to make sure you really don't understand, can you see what's actually visible or not visible, because it's only looking at it in the plan.
Well, all I can do is go by what
Right,
they're
that's what I'm
showing.
saying. So an elevation of that, something, rendering that will show that visibility. Unfortunately, what you have on the street is looking down South Orange Avenue and not looking towards the loading dock. So it doesn't give anyone who's here the ability to understand what that's going to look like from the street. And that would probably help and answer a lot of the questions that they have and their concerns. Is that something you can do? I would recommend trying to pull something together like that so people can see and can look at it.
We can do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand his point, because I think it's the point of a lot of people on the board, the same thing, is what is that loading dock going to look like from the street? What's the impact that it's going to have? What's the impact of the service road, whether it's lit, not lit, and basically how it affects South Orange Avenue and the residents along South Orange Avenue as
Yeah.
well. So,
No, I appreciate that, and that's what I'm trying to find out too.
right.
Okay, I mean, I don't know what else I can say other than if you can get that other information, that'd be great. The only other thing I guess I would, and I'm not sure if this is for you or not, is the other things that were considered, I guess I'll say, other accesses and things like that. I mean, it seems to me that you've got this road here with the big circle, you've got a number of other accesses, and what I'm hearing, at least, and if I'm misunderstanding it, please correct me, is that this seems to be the easiest thing for Seton Hall, and I do get that, but I mean, it's going to have a huge impact on the community. Right now, I turn and look at, a grassy lawn.
Okay,
And
Mr.
now-
Chairman, if I might ask that the person ask a question.
Right.
I mean, because
Okay, well-
this is just, an opportunity later to give testimony.
I appreciate that.
But,
And
but I
I'll-
mean, you're certainly not asking questions. You're just giving your opinions.
agree.
and-
Okay, all right, well then, the question I have is, the other things that were considered, did you take into account the impact they were gonna have on the neighbors? And can you explain that, how you took that into account, please?
And then after that, if we like to give other people a chance. to
Absolutely,
talk,
I'll
so-
put the mic down and give it to whoever else wants to talk.
I think as part of that answer, not only did we consider the neighbors, but we also considered the impact on the university. That when people come down South Orange Avenue, they're looking at the university also. And we respect the fact that the first thing we don't want them to see is a loading dock, okay? Or a service road. And I think that's why we've put so much effort into the landscaping that we have and are committing to the board, in terms of providing a nice streetscape for that reason. So I think, we did consider other things, and it wasn't at what was convenient for the university. It's what the best option was when we reviewed every option that came around the campus. And you have to remember, we have neighbors on all sides of us. So it's not only the neighbors on Elm Court, it's the neighbors on South Center Street also that we have to keep in mind and form a balance between everything that we looked at.
I understand and I appreciate it, but the current way the trucks come in, if that remained the same, then the residents on the other areas wouldn't be impacted at all any differently than they are now.
But I think, as I had said, this intersection is tighter than probably almost the corner at Cabrini. And right now, what has to be done is we have to almost do a K-turn with larger trucks to try to back up and get to the current university center. And what we were trying to do is, from a safety perspective, separate pedestrian crossing where there is truck traffic and separate truck traffic from vehicular traffic. This is a very busy intersection here. You have crossroads of the university in terms of vehicular access. You have buses that come to the rec center. You have students that cross from the residence halls to use the fitness facilities in the recreation center. You have students that cross this area to come into the library. So this corridor here at Madison Avenue and this pedestrian corridor that comes from the residence halls onto the green are probably the highest circulation patterns we have on campus. And our goal was to minimize or eliminate truck traffic in those areas as a safety precaution.
And I'd like to move on to other people as well.
Yep, I just had one more question, I apologize. Would you consider anything like perhaps having somebody, a crosswalk guard there or something to do the traffic rather than build this big extra service road?
I think, again, it's not a matter of having a controlled intersection with a crossing guard. If you would have to stop traffic for a number of minutes, as we do today, to try to get trucks down that service road that is basically a very tight intersection to begin with. Okay?
I'm Janet Epp Rosenthal. I live on Warren Court. And my question is, has a noise assessment been conducted? Because 17 trucks a day backing up are going to be beeping. That means we're going to have truck traffic and beeping backing trucks for virtually everybody's waking hours. And I'd like to know if a noise assessment has been made to consider the impact of that on the neighborhood.
We have not done a noise assessment at this time. The number of trucks that are coming into this property is not changing. So the traffic that's being generated, well, it's still coming in off South Orange Avenue at the same.
Ma'am.
You can speak in the microphone,
Excuse me. Where they are is changing, and the size of the trucks apparently is changing. 17 trucks, half or more of which are tractor trailers. I don't see them.
That's
The testimony was 7 to 15, just so the record is clear.
It's 7 to 15 trucks. That includes tractor trailers as well as smaller trucks.
That's
delivery
fine, but you
vehicles.
realize that any truck that backs up beeps, and it beeps, and it beeps, and it beeps. And anyone here in the neighborhood can tell you, twice a week on trash pickup day, we hear lots and lots of beeping for a couple hours. Now you're talking about beeping that's going to go on all day, every day.
Well, typically, just.
I just think a noise assessment should be done. And the last thing I'll say is that for the board here, I understand these gentlemen have said that they believe that no traffic impact assessment is necessary, but I would hope that you would make that determination yourselves, because this is such a significant impact on our neighborhood.
Well, one of the things I was going to say with delivery, you should have, a schedule of some sort that you could give people an idea of what has happened. You don't have to give it right now, but at least you can put together what kind of delivery schedule you anticipate, hours, if it's limited to a certain period of time.
Your microphone.
Oh, sorry. If your delivery schedule is tied into a certain period of time, what hours of operation your loading dock will facilitate. So that would help.
That's acceptable.
There's another question?
Thank you. My name is John Tiefert. I live at 104 South Kingman Road in Tuxedo Park. I've got 3 questions, and I'll stick to that. Earlier, you said that the building has 4 fronts, that the building is attractive from all different directions. I wonder if that's the case, then why would you need a visual buffer at all?
The reason that we're looking at putting the visual buffer is because, based on the comment letters and what we're hearing from the audience, is they want a buffer. We had a limited buffer surrounding the loading dock area, which, as has been mentioned, we've recessed between the buildings. We've tried pushing it down to minimize the impacts as much as possible. There were a lot of comments about the rest of the road, and the decision was made to start looking at increasing the buffering to screen that.
Okay. You've said that the loading dock is enclosed, that the dumpsters are enclosed. Certainly, if I were spending X millions of dollars on a project like this, I'd want to show it off a little bit. A moment ago, you said that ideally you wouldn't be able to see through this visual barrier. I understand that you've received feedback that there should be a visual barrier, but you've also said that you want to show off this project as a jewel for the university. So, which is it?
We would prefer to show the building. We understand screening the loading area, and we would still want to screen that, but we would prefer to show more of the building and have it seen as you drive down South Orange Avenue. This is going to be a beautiful new building that's going to mimic the historic architecture of some of the other older buildings on campus. However, we're in the position where we're trying to balance seeing it with comments that people don't want to see it.
My third question touches on this, and I certainly understand that your client is the school. But I wonder if you've considered that the trees, the buffer, the service road, at least to the people in the neighborhood, this reinforces the feeling that Seton Hall really is an island rather than part of the village. Excuse me, I just wonder if you'd considered that.
I can't really talk to that point.
Thank you.
The question was, does Seton Hall, does he see the Seton Hall makes this of an island?
Just Johnson from Warren Court. How you doing? I'm looking at your schematics that you have here, and my house is situated on Warren Court. It's kind of like on the, it's like in a semicircle, and I'm facing the dormitory, the first dormitory that you have up at the top.
Yeah, this is Cabrini Hall.
Yeah, I mean you don't actually.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
You don't actually see the curve, but there's a curve on my block, and then there's a curve on Elm Court. Okay, because it's not straight. It's not like perpendicular to South Orange. And I agree that we need a noise assessment. I also feel I have one question. Is this an improvement to my property values, do you feel? Or do you think that it might be a detriment to me selling when I retire in about 18 months?
I'm not in that field.
I'm not sure if they can answer that question.
Yeah, but I do. How do you think this improves the neighborhood? Can you answer that question?
My opinion is not relevant to the testimony.
Okay.
That wouldn't be his question to answer either.
I apologize, that's not
All right.
my
Is there a
decision.
person that can answer that question? How this is improving my neighborhood?
It's not a relevant question.
Right.
It might be relevant for the planner.
To the planner. To the planner.
To the planner?
Yep.
Their planner.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Banks, and I live in Warren Court, and I've been in the community for 36 years. And when Seton Hall started building all of the dormitories and what have you, my basement started flooding. And I want to know what you're doing about the drainage. Have you done a study on that?
Yes, we've done a study on the drainage as well as a stormwater management plan to address the runoff related to the service road as well. All the new improvements are included within our drainage study. And what we've done is created an underground detention system that reduces the peak runoff rates developed between the existing and proposed conditions. So we're actually reducing the peak runoff that occurs during storm events by holding it on the site, slowing it down as it gets into the South Orange Avenue system.
Thank you.
My name is Doug Huebner. I live on Hall Court. I have a quick question back against about the trees. It looks like you're putting a big forest up on that as a buffer. So could you describe for me what kind of trees? Because to me, the only thing that you can't see through is evergreens. So literally what you're going to do is create a wall of Again, going back to their point where you're going to isolate Seton Hall from the rest of the world, which is fine, it's your prerogative. But what you're going to do is you're going to put a wall of evergreens.
The idea is not to screen 100%. The idea would be to minimize the views. We don't want to build a wall of evergreens
Right.
that you can't see through.
I get that.
So there would be sort of a intermixing of evergreens, shade trees, which are non-evergreen type trees, you know, with leaves that fall off, as
Right.
well as evergreen shrubs and maybe some lower plantings.
Which leads to the other point. 8 months out of the year, there's no leaves.
That's why the incorporation
And
of
the other point
evergreens.
is, when they all fall off onto South Orange Avenue on a rainy, wet fall night, who's going to be responsible for picking them up? We have a hard enough time in this town with all the leaves and that's a busy road with people going really fast. So what happens to all the leaves? And who takes care of them? My tax dollars? Am I picking up the tree leaves? Who's paying for that?
Well, the majority, I mean, just if you look at the plan, the majority of the trees seem to appear on the Seton Hall property, so, but I
We get it,
understand
but it
that.
gets windy. They blow. And also, we've also had a ton of trees come down in this town in the last 2 years. And they're all going to fall on South Orange Avenue.
Well, the tree, I know some trees fell down at the campus. Typically, it's older trees. These
Right,
are,
and the
you know,
only
these are
ones you're
new
gonna get-
plantings. It's going to be
Okay.
50 years before they're the size of some of the trees.
I made my point. I don't need to hear an answer. The other one is, you said it, your address is 400 South Orange Avenue. That's your front lawn. I have a front lawn. You're my neighbor. I can't put a driveway through my front lawn. I can't go and just decide to build a circular driveway. That's what you're doing. That's your front lawn. That's what we look at as your neighbor. That's what you're doing to us.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Johnson, Warren Court. How old are these plantings that you're going to put down? How mature are these trees? How old are they? How old are they going to be, the ones that you put down there?
I don't know the age. I
Okay.
will admit. The idea is that we'd be putting
Mature trees?
mature. I mean, we're not putting in a 40-foot tree.
No, I understand.
But the idea would be we'd be planting 8 to 10 foot, 12-foot height trees.
And that's going to...
Does your landscaping, question would be, does your landscaping plan show the caliber of the trees you're going to install?
We do have, on the plan that was submitted to the board that has the buffering around the service court, we do have
It has the caliber of the trees?
calipers of those trees listed in the table. There was some comments in the review letters asking, suggesting that we increase the size. I think we had 2.5 to 3 or 3.5 inch. I believe the suggestion was increase that to 3.5 to 4. Obviously bigger caliper, taller
trees.
And then, you know, as I said, we only had this designed and laid out. The idea would be to continue that.
Well, that's the reason I was saying, really,
size.
that what you want to do is have an elevation, some rendering that shows what those trees would look like and what the visibility is, because that's where a lot of these questions would be addressed.
That's comment number 21 on our planner's note. Golden mention.
I think we just want to ask any more questions from? And then-
My name is Chris Beljour, and I live on Elm Court. And as some of the residents have mentioned, Seton Hall is our neighbor.
Chris, can you speak up so we can hear you?
Seton Hall is our neighbor, and they are part of our community. And as a member of the community, I would like to know, before this whole planning happened, if Seton Hall actually contacted members of the community to see how they felt about the plan and how it would impact them and so on and so forth. Now, Chris, I believe Johnson from Warren Court mentioned something about property value, and I heard that it was not relevant to this. I beg to differ, because, you know, as a property owner, that's one of the issues that I'm concerned about, in addition to living in communion with Seton Hall.
Good evening. My name is Uli Kremer. I live on 5 Elm Court. Hi, everybody. You mentioned that the new University Center will have several fronts, right? You don't have a back. And the address of Seton Hall is 400 South Orange Avenue. If you drive by, that's essentially, we said that is the first impression that you get. So I would claim that this would be the front yard of Seton Hall. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I mean, it does have many fronts.
I am under the impression that you cannot put a loading dock in your front yard. I might be wrong, but in general, there are things that I cannot put in my front yard. I'm surprised that I could put whatever. I might be able to pave my entire front lawn over and park my car there. I would say probably not. I might be wrong. So my question is, can you have a loading dock in your front yard?
A yard is described as the portion of the property within the required setback. So
Okay.
no, I cannot have it in the front yard, but the front yard is the 30-foot setback.
Okay, so that position is front yard 30-foot paddock. I don't know whether that's indeed legally the case. I don't know. So that was my first question. My second question, how much more covered or paved area do you introduce by building the 20-foot road, the turning circle, and the loading dock?
In terms of coverage, I don't have that number in my hands.
Okay,
And
so fine.
I'd be
But
a
clearly, you have to build an underwater system now to kind of trap the flow, right? The water flow that comes out.
Yeah,
You mentioned reduce the peak load.
Yes,
What's the actual volume that you increase?
I have that information in the stormwater report. I don't have that on the top of my head.
Because peak is only one thing, right? Peak is kind of, if you go under peak and you kind of flood the system, you might get flooding somewhere else. So it's not just you cap it off, but.
The question would be, did you do a 100-year calculation and
The
this is increased
calculations in
to
the
handle that?
stormwater that we've done is for the 2, 10, 100-year storm. It's in compliance with both the municipal as well as the state stormwater design regulations.
Okay, last question. You mentioned emergency vehicles access to buildings. Are you planning to build access roads from the service road to the building? Or what do you mean by emergency access?
I think the intent more for emergency access is really geared towards fire protection. Right now, it's very difficult to get fire protection vehicles to these buildings. They have to come off of these internal roadways and use widened sidewalks to get access, whereas now fire vehicles will be able to access from back here. The intent is not to bring, say, an ambulance to the back. This is not the front of these buildings, so there's really no access points to those buildings. It's more for firefighting.
So there are no access, so firefighting, not whatever emergency vehicles or anything like that?
No.
Okay. But you, at this point, you conform to standard, whatever, fire safety rules. So what you have right now is appropriate for these buildings in terms of access of fire trucks.
I don't know those regulations.
Okay, so you're saying that it may be that actually currently you're violating the fire rules. I mean, I'm trying to
Currently, there
understand if you say
there
you
are
need
no
it.
violations to the Fire Protection Act requirements and requirements of the South Orange Fire
So what you're
Code.
saying is the service road would enhance, if you wish, the
Give them more of an
accessibility, but
opportunity.
you would not put any additional access to the building itself.
No, no
Okay.
access to the building.
Thank you very much.
Even before you stand up and even ask the question, just to let you know, given the time that we have, unfortunately, this is not going to end tonight. So if you have other questions, write them down, keep them safe, because I know we're going to be back here again. Otherwise, no one's going to go home. So not a second chance for anyone, unfortunately. So even before you get up there, we're going to stop the questions at this point, because we had a few questions that we had up here. So for the public, we're going to stop at this point and at least ask a few of the questions that we had from the planning board members. And we'll give you a chance when we come back again. No, not a question. Not a question. If you can have a seat, please. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to suggest two things. First of all, I think that we want to find a way at least I want to find a way, that will satisfy the residents of South Orange and allow the university to make progress. I just think we want to start from that premise. I don't think anybody here wants to not make sure that Seton Hall can continue to serve its students and be part of our community, and I think we want to make sure that the community can feel that Seton Hall is part of the environment. That being said, it seems to me that the number of unanswered questions or the lack of specificity about a number of issues will preclude us from making a conclusion tonight. And I would ask the indulgence of my colleagues to sit down, write the list, and say, Seton Hall, we really want to make this work. Fellow citizens, we want to make this work, but it's not going to get worked out tonight.
Correct.
Precisely.
Yeah, I'd like to, echo a similar sentiment, I suppose. And obviously, we're not going to do it tonight, although as far as board meetings, this is pretty early than what I'm used to. But I think that there were some questions before about, property values and how this affects that. And, it's certainly not for an engineer or for an architect to answer that. But I do believe absolutely 100% that the success of Seton Hall is parallel to the success of South Orange and your property values. Is that to say that $1 in Seton Hall means $1 for your property values? No. But is that to say that improvements to Seton Hall's campus, and ideally in my own personal vision of Seton Hall and South Orange, the taking down of those gates and the complete integration of the university into this community, will that do good things for property values? 10,000% yes. And so that's not to say that that means that this is perfect 100%, or that Seton Hall is a 100% perfect neighbor. I've never met a 100% perfect neighbor. I think that this is an excellent addition to their campus. I think it will do great things for our town. I think Seton Hall is an excellent and valuable and vibrant part of this community. And again, it's not for the experts testifying to answer, but as the village president, from the village's standpoint, I do believe that 100%. And if we can find a way to mitigate some of the concerns that were raised, and make sure that Seton Hall is able to do this project and to do it right for them as well. Because I've been on campus when trucks try and back into those corners, and I've actually gotten stuck trying to respond to calls of the rescue squad because a truck is blocking a road. There's no way for anyone to get past it. There's no way for the driver to move. There's nothing anybody can do about it until that truck is finished making that K-turn. And perhaps that should have been engineered better, I don't know, however many years ago when that road was built or the loading docks were built. But it is what it is, and as far as I can tell, this is a great improvement to the campus. And if we can figure out a way to do that, and maybe not even just keep that streetscape the same, but maybe even find a way to improve it, improve the lighting, make it a little bit more friendly for people to walk up South Orange Ave at night, that will make Seton Hall more part of the community as well. So, I think that is, to echo those sentiments, what this board is interested in, and hopefully we'll be able to come to that resolution, even if it's not tonight.
Yeah. I would suggest that before we hear the application further, that Seton Hall meet with our planners. There's a lot of questions that you said you're going to agree to, you're going to work out, but those details have to be worked out. I would also implore you to consider doing a traffic study in dealing also with number of truck issues and so forth. I'd also like to see presented, there's going to be a 2-year, from experience, a 2-year construction period. You're going to have concrete trucks, construction trucks, and everything running in there. I would love to see somebody addressing that. And I certainly think you ought to address some noise assessment. One thing that Langen put in their stormwater assessment was, according to the zoning, according to Article 92-115, which, by the way, I didn't see it in there, project is not considered a major development. I disagree. I consider it a major development. When you're expanding a building by 77%, just this one building, not including the other, in concert, I consider that's a major development.
I don't mean to interrupt. Are you sure that's the University Center stormwater report?
Revised revised 28 March 13. Seton Hall University, Stanford Hall
No,
reconstruction?
that's Stafford Hall. That was the approval from last month.
Okay, well, all right, either way.
This is a major
Either
development.
way, I mean, you're doing this piecemeal. I would have preferred all of this at once so we could have addressed everything at once. Unfortunately, it's being done piecemeal for whatever the reason. But again, those are my comments. I think there's a lot to go before, of items to be worked out with our planners, with our town engineer, who was not here tonight, unfortunately, he's ill. And there's a lot of questions that have to be answered.
We also had a couple of questions from our our planners, so I know you had several questions you wanted to ask.
I think given where we are tonight, I'll hold them off until next meeting. We have some discussions with the applicants, professionals, to get to a better place than where we are right now.
And what's the best way, if there are residents that are here tonight or people that are watching at home and they have questions as well, what's the best way to are we asking them to just come to the next meeting, or can they send them to something, I know not the whole board at once, but to somebody, and we can make sure to have those addressed from our standpoint as well?
Is there a method we have for that, Patrick?
Not really good method. We're really supposed to have this discussion in public.
Right.
It's an open meeting. It's an application by this applicant. They're entitled to hear those questions, and residents certainly have the right to offer those questions, but it's supposed to be done in the public setting now that we've started the application process. So I'd encourage anyone who has questions and concerns, make sure they raise them. If there's any information the board wants in particular right now to see, I know there are comments in hired rules memo which may have not been addressed fully, as well as Almlin's going to work, they've already said they're going to work with the applicant, so.
And I echo the chairman's suggestion that an elevation would be very helpful, I think, to explain, to visually show what is proposed.
Yes, and with that, I think it's really important that you show the trees at the age which they're going to be installed versus the age, how you want it to look in the future, because you have a long time from the time you plant that tree for it to get to that maturity. So what is that tree going to look like when you plant it?
We'll endeavor to meet with both Omlin and Ms. Gruel's office and try to come up with answers and a revised landscaping plan that hopefully will fit the needs of the community and Seton Hall.
Right.
Hallie,
Yes.
two things. One, I would appreciate if the university could consider, I very much, let me do it differently. I very much appreciate your comments about all the things you considered. Had you given those comments before we went through the details, we might have saved some time, effort, energy, and a few other things. And I appreciate that we need to see the bigger picture, although the board is tasked with the minutia. So if we could have the bigger picture first and the minutia second, it would be very helpful, at least to this member of the board. That's one comment. The second comment is, in terms of this road, I would be curious if you can consider, working with our planners, et cetera, if you can have some sort of, once that turn is made, can you take back 6, 8, 10 feet, make it not a dual lane road, have some sort of access that is controlled access. A red light goes on if there's already a semi-trailer truck. You can only have one truck at a time or something. If you can consider that, and you can come back and say, we considered it doesn't work, I'd at least be satisfied to know that we thought outside the 24-foot wide street when we have colleagues and fellow citizens whose needs also have to be addressed as neighbors. So that's where I'm coming from, and we want to find an equitable way for everyone to move forward together.
Not to shoot that down or anything, but maybe just one thought on the one-way idea, which at the beginning sounded very promising, but my worry is that trucks are going to queue and idle further down the driveway, and they're going to be out of the coverage area. So I just want to make sure that that's considered too as part of the discussion. But, yeah,
I mean, I think
look at all the options.
Right. I mean, I think the point tonight is just to remember to look at all the options. I mean, not to figure out what will or will not work in a particular option tonight, but really to make a commitment to looking at all the options so that we can have a win-win from this.
We have our homework cut out for us.
Yes. One is, how long do you think you need to get that together? The next is, when do we have time to bring it back to the board?
We already got two things on the agenda for
next
May, I
week.
believe.
Right.
No, for June.
For June.
For June.
So it'll be July.
So, I mean, July is tight.
Yeah.
I would really love to not push this off. I mean, I don't know how much time they need. I mean, as soon as, from my perspective, as soon as possible, we can hear them.
Well, they need time to prepare.
This person in the audience has a question.
What's on the agenda for June?
We have two applications for completeness.
Oh, only completeness?
I believe so.
Just for completeness?
Yeah.
What?
Doesn't have to be first, but it has to be.
That's fine. As long as it comes after those other.
No.
Hold on. Ma'am.
Well, then they won't be able to consider those questions in what they're preparing to bring back to you. I mean, I'll be back here in a couple months, don't get me wrong, I'll be here, but.
Ma'am,
if I raise
ma'am,
good issues
excuse me. We're on the record, so if you have comments, you really have to be addressed by the chair and come up and go to the mic, otherwise the people at home can't hear you.
Give you a chance. I mean, I'm trying not to have everyone else come back up again, but if we have one person, you want to have a couple of questions, let's do that.
I think
I understand what the point is.
Perhaps instead of getting back into questions and answers again, there's a question around process, not the content of what we're discussing tonight. And the process question for people that are listening or watching at home is, what are we doing going forward? Is the next meeting when we're deciding this, or are we discussing it again and then deciding? Do people need to have their questions addressed now before it's decided, or is there another opportunity to discuss and then there's a decision?
You can't decide it.
You can't decide until you hear it.
I would suggest the following. I would move that this be continued to the next meeting. Assuming that Seton Hall is prepared with all the timeliness according to our attorney when everything has to be submitted, we should consider it at the next meeting. I don't know which order of the agenda, that's not my purview. If they're not prepared by then with the kinds of drawings and landscapes and et cetera that we ask, then that will have been their decision based on what they're. So I would move that we move this forward and that we adjourn the meeting. That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine. We adjourn that, but before
We have some work to do before we adjourn.
Okay.
We gotta get rid of this.
I take it back. Don't adjourn.
I understand. So, can you be prepared to come back or try to be prepared for the next meeting?
Yes, we'll be prepared.
Okay. And we ask that all the people who are here, if you have questions, come back. We'll be able to make a decision at the next meeting. We only know that depending on what information they're able to provide. If they don't provide adequate information, it may have to continue. So no one can guarantee you that a decision will be made at the next meeting at all. But we'll do our best to do that for Seton Hall, who wants to have that happen. And we'll try to make sure that your questions get addressed in whatever way possible.
Go to the mic. Go to the mic. The people at home need to be able to hear you.
My question relates to the water issues. A neighbor raised an issue that she's had new flooding since prior construction. I was not aware of that. So it's raised a new question in my mind, and that is, what direction are you sloping this?
And with the question, this is what I pose to you. Ask the question. There will be no answer on that question this evening, but they can take that question away and come back
That's
next time with
fine,
an answer.
because I would like to see your slope going into Seton Hall. Because from South Orange Avenue, it slopes downhill down Warren Court. And the last big rainstorm we had a few months, I don't know,
I think they understand the question.
it flooded everybody.
I think they understand the question.
So if your system isn't going to be big enough, can you slope it your way so you guys flood and we don't?
So I understand next meeting is June 3rd, so that's
Correct. June 3rd. All right?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You want to go over what we think we have
Yes.
asked them for?
If you can review that.
Jamie, don't go yet.
Here's a list of what I believe has been asked of the applicant. An elevation plan of the loading dock area, to study, control traffic on the access way to see whether or not one lane can work. The hours and operations for the loading dock. the grading and runoff from the proposed improvements, and to address in more clarity the comments from the Omlin review letter and Higher and Gruel review letters.
I think there was one more thing.
Traffic
And
study.
there's been a
and
request
noise
for a traffic study from Mr. Miller.
And noise.
Yeah, noise.
Noise.
Noise study.
And noise abatement. What the impact of the trucks are on that side for noise versus where they are now. There was a request to at least consider that and come back to us with what they think. You know, nobody knows till you drive the truck.
All right.
May I please add one kind of unrelated question?
You didn't.
And it's quite.
We can.
It's very, very hard. I know it's quite late, so I'll make it quick. If I could add one question to that list, and that would be, why not simply design this project inside the existing building codes?
That's the question. Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick, I think the other question was, if, I don't know about the full traffic study, but there was a question about what's the current number of trucks in and trucks out? What's the history of that? So that we can have some semblance of that. That's just the statistical
There was also a
information.
question of, again, student population, which hasn't, it's been asked
Hadn't been
twice and
answered,
hasn't
right.
been answered.
You know what else I would love to know, this may not be for them, but maybe for us, is the daily traffic volume on South Orange Ave. Just be interested in knowing that.
Well, that
That'd
you
be
would
part
get
of
from
the
a traffic study.
Traffic study.
If it's provided.
Well, I'm sure that number exists already. I just don't know. Yeah.
But in the
I'm just
traffic
interested,
study, they'll
maybe.
provide it
Yeah.
both ways. They'll provide the present and the proposed,
Right.
what they see. One cleanup thing.
Yes.
We've had these definitions kicking around for a long
Then-
while. Everybody is,
We're done.
Yes, I'm
You guys,
sorry.
we have to move on to another issue, and so we'll see you at the next meeting.
All right, you're kicking us out. Okay, we're leaving. All right.
You can stay if you want.
yeah, I mean, I want.
Don't take
Thank
it the
you.
wrong way.
I would just like to move all of the new definitions and the ordinances dealing with the, I guess it was wind, solar, and so forth, that we've had for months. They've been vetted by the committee. We made the recommendation, I believe, to the board. We just keep postponing it, meeting
So
after
moved.
meeting.
Second.
All in. Okay. Do we need
You have a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion.
I know, you got a second?
Second.
We-
Okay, let's go.
Do we need a roll call?
Do you need a roll call? You need a roll call for this?
You can do a roll call, sure.
Okay, roll call.
Who devised these definitions, Michael?
They were prepared by Higher Gruel. They were reviewed by Elliot as chair, Eli as chair. I reviewed them. We've had contact back and forth. We've talked to the committee. I think we've gone ad nauseum with it. And I'd just like to get rid of 2 inches of paper.
Sounds good. Can we have a roll call, Jenny?
Okay, Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Torpe,
Yes.
Reverend Wilson, Yes. and Mr. Allen.
Yes.
What happened to Janine? Sorry, Ms. Bauer.
She's still thinking about
You weren't on the initial list. It's okay. I move adjournment.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
Good night.
it. Susan?